Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei Had the Powers of All Four Most Powerful Otsutsukis Part 2. Before we start, please go support Linkrobel13 for writing that awesome fanfic. Now let's begin. This is the translated version I made. There will be some wrong he or she calling here because it's translated, so let me clear this. Issei is a male in this story. Severe problems. Issei was resting in a bed next to a beautiful woman who was none other than Hella, who was sleeping very happily on the brown-haired boy's chest. It must be said that they had a very busy night, so as soon as dawn broke at this moment, his head suddenly ached slightly, and it was somewhat regular lately. 2 months had already passed since the events in Hyoudou, and it must be said that Issei had already mastered the sage mode of the 6 paths completely, but there was something that recently worried him. He did not know what, but he felt that something bad was about to happen. Without further ado, he got up, waking up Hella. "It was a nice night," said the goddess. "You have a lot of stamina, haha," she said with an unholy smile. "And I see why you are a goddess. Never before could a single woman resist me alone," said Issei, smiling halfway and then dressed in his Otsutsuki clothes. After finishing getting dressed, she turned to see Hella, who was already wearing her black dress with black details worthy of a goddess of death like her. "I'll go with him, he must be waiting where I told him to," said the brown-haired boy as he disappeared into a vortex. "I hope to tell him one of these days that way of leaving is so great," said Hella, and without further ado, she went to the living room of her palace in Helheim. With Issei. The chestnut had just arrived at the place, which was a completely desert area. There was nothing but barren rock without any trace of life, and there sitting on a rock was a white hare with blue eyes and a white tunic. "You're early, I was hoping you'd arrive a little later as we agreed," Issei said seriously. "I had to get here early, after all we will rebuild the earth in my world together using our powers," said the white hare. "I know, Toneri, I know that very well, although I didn't expect that we would see each other in this desert in the underworld, considering that the ancient demons are still looking for my head," he said with a half smile. "We are in unexplored territory, so we have no problem with them, although I am still surprised that you proposed to recreate the ninja world, despite the fact that they were constantly at war," said Toneri. "And as I told you, they joined together to stop the final madness of one man. That idiot tried to dominate the dragon god was his last mistake," said Issei. "I agree with you on that, and that's why I decided to cooperate. Besides, you gave me these eyes," he said as his blue eyes with a strange white flower pattern appeared. "I have the Rinnegan, but I still haven't got the Tensegan, and I needed someone who had it to rebuild the earth, so I turned to the other survivor of the ninja world." He knew his decision because he wanted to return what was lost due to the ambition of a lunatic, said Toneri. Suddenly Issei was on guard. A very bad feeling came over him when he felt a chakra several meters away from them. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets when he saw a vortex so familiar to him. He used that vortex with his Mangekyou Sharingan, so there was only one response, and it was not pleasant. "Abito," said Issei as his Mangekyou Sharingan came to life, but then both he and Toneri looked in disbelief, as he was not the only one to come out of there, and the one they believed more than dead was coming out next to Abito from the vortex. Anger flooded Issei quickly and he angrily shouted. Vidar, as soon as he said that, the black-haired man with his Rinnegan looked at the brown-haired man carefully as he died with half of his body covered by black Zetsu. "So here is the Jinchuriki of the 9 Bijas," said Black Zetsu. "He's just a snot, it will be easy to finish him off, Kuchius." Jed Maz Madara said seriously. Issei is incredulous, but then he thought about it carefully and the memories of Hagoromo came to him suddenly, seeing what the old man saw. Vidara survived the first attack by using the Bijas as a shield from the Great Red's attack, and since they were chakra they only died temporarily, while Black Zetsu had used Abito's Kamui to take out the 3 of them and the Jed Mazm. Issei became even more enraged and activated his Rinnegan in all its splendor, but then he felt how the Jed Mazm began to slowly take the form of the Juubi. He did not understand anything until Toneri spoke. "They took a bit of the 9 beasts chakra before the catastrophe happened, those 2 bastards," Toneri said in anger. "The plan of the Eye of the Moon will be carried out whether here or anywhere else," said Madara, but then he saw how fog covered them. Nothing had seemed to change for him. "A simple jutsu won't be of much use to you, Brad," said the Uchiha. "Dimension lost, a sacred gear so powerful in the right hands and mine are now, annihilation maker, balance breaker." After saying that a colossal beast in the form of a 6-armed and 2-horned troll originates from Issei's shadow, the colossal beast was 100 meters tall. Issei looked at the huge beast and then pointed at the Juubi, which was already in its final form, despite the low chakra of the 9 beasts. Vidara was shocked, but as soon as the beast launched itself towards the Juubi, he ordered the Juubi to finish it off, and a powerful battle between beasts took place on the spot, while Toneri and Issei prepared for the devastating battle that was coming upon them, not knowing that this would only get worse later, much worse. Madara launched himself at Issei, who began to repel them with Taijutsu, one that Madara instantly recognized, smiling as he remembered who he considered the strongest in Taijutsu. So he taught you his style of Taijutsu, heh? Let's see if you're up to par or at least close to my expectations, Madara shouted excitedly as he tried to kick Issei, but then simply passed through him. Kamui? Madara asked as he dodged Issei's front kick. Issei did not answer. I would not design to answer this guy who caused the destruction of an entire world because of his ambition. Raynare for his part attacked Obito with Taijutsu, not being able to do anything to him because Obito used his Kamui, but the same was true for Obito, who every time he attacked he was perfectly evaded. After that Raynare sent him away with force using his gravitational powers. Obito was upset by this. Who did they think they were to prevent him from seeing Rin again? For his part, Raynare was really upset by this. His plans to restore the shinobi world were being ruined by a couple of crazy idiots who only made him angry. Madara was impressed by the brown-haired boy's ability as he fought on par with him, but everyone's attention was interrupted when the giant beast was finally defeated by the Juubi, who used a Bijuadama at full power. The brown-haired boy just shrugged his shoulders and watched as Madara absorbed the Juubi again, turning the white-haired boy into a pale-skinned man with a Rin Sharingan on his forehead. Issei was about to hit him when his head hurt more than usual, and he was hit by a limbo from Madara, who by the way looked at him mockingly. Issei calmed down and decided it was time to use his 6th-path Sage mode, but at that moment his Rinnegan showed 6 tomes in his first 2 waves. Issei managed to see Madara's limbo and decided to create his own. He counterattacked Madara, who still had a certain advantage over Issei, or that was until Issei said, "I'll show you what Sage mode and the Flames of Youth can do together," he said, and then shot out at greater speed towards Madara. "Kamen Kai," said the brunette as he opened his eyes in surprise, as he recognized the technique very well, but he didn't expect the impact of the blow to be greater than the one he had that time. So he deduced that if he allowed it to go further it would really kill him. "You're strong, kid, but not enough," he said as he closely incinerated Issei with his Amaterasu and his Jutsu Kaiten. Great fire annihilation. However, further up ahead was the brat now intact. "The Izanagi won't be of much use to you against me," said Madara, but he noticed something else and shouted really shocked, "How is it possible that you still see in that eye of the Izanagi?" He ended up being interrupted by an incredibly strong blow. Pikmin Kai, Seimin Kai, after that a series of kicks and punches were given leaving Madara damaged. "Izanami or Izanagi will not have that side effect on me, Madara, you better prepare yourself." For his part, Raynare had Obito in a bind since he discovered the weakness of Kamui. "You know, he doesn't have this problem with Kamui as serious as you do, but well, it's not like you can defeat him, no one can," Raynare said seriously. "Let's see if it's true," he said, disappearing in a vortex, but his voice was not at all that of death. Issei for his part had already awakened 5 of the 8 gates and was already far surpassing Madara. Advantages of the Sage mode of the 6 paths is that the body is much more resistant and stronger, so it had no impact on him yet, and even if it had, he could use Izanagi unlimitedly on both him and Raynare. However, nothing prepared him for what he saw. Obito had attacked Madara from behind, piercing his belly. Madara vomited blood to look behind him and see Obito. "What does this mean, Black Zetsu?" he asked incredulously. "I'm just following my mother's will, don't take it the wrong way, you're no longer useful to me," said Black Zetsu, spreading it on Madara's body so that it would begin to swell more and more until it became a huge ball of dough and then began to shrink, revealing a very beautiful woman. Kaguya Otsutsuki, Issei said in shock. He knew that only he and Raynare could stop her together since he didn't trust Obituary even a little bit. "Agoromo, Himura," she said, seeing Issei and Raynare in front of her, and without further ado the Shinju tree rose behind her and a huge glow appeared in the place, but then she realized something. "Where are we? There's no one else here," he said authoritatively. "Infinite Tsukiyomi will never work in my lost Kaguya dimension, so don't even try to use it," Issei said seriously, but again the headache came back to him with force. "You've heard that when things are bad they can get worse." Well, that's exactly what happened at this very moment for Issei. As the pain increased considerably, a distortion occurred in the place, and it was something that scared Kaguya herself. Millennia of escape. Millennia of hiding from them. And not at all. "Oh, so this is where you were hiding," Kaguya said with great arrogance, the subject who came out accompanied by another one. "Mama Shiki," she said in fear as he smiled at her. Triple encounter. Things really got complicated for both Issei and Raynare as well as Kaguya. Things were pretty screwed up at this point. Mama Shiki and Kinshiki looked at the 4 present, although the black-haired man didn't matter to them since he didn't represent the slightest problem. The brown-haired man with the Rinnegan and the white hair of the Tensegan were undoubtedly the greatest threat, but they couldn't leave Kaguya Otsutsuki aside. "Raynare, you go get that robust guy, I'll take care of Kaguya and that smaller guy." At this point Obituary is anything but a threat, said the brown-haired man as he opened 7 of the 8 internal doors. "Done, it won't take long, he's not that powerful, and I can see that," Raynare said, entering Tensegan chakra mode. Gaia for her part Ella trembled slightly in her place Ella, but Zetsu's voice Ella calmed her a little. It is true that she was not alone, she had him Ella, her Ella only ally. Issei for his part knew that the Momoshiki guy was underestimating him, and Kagaya, being honest with himself, Kagaya was a threat far greater than that Otsutsuki and his companion. After a few seconds Toneri attacked Kinshiki with a Gudadama and threw him away from the place, while Momoshiki launched himself against Issei and Kagaya launched her bones against the two, but they dodged it. Sooner than later Momoshiki realized his mistake when fighting Issei head-on because he kicked him and damaged him considerably, but at that same moment, he stole some chakra from the brown-haired boy. Gaia threw her hair as if needles were going towards Momoshiki, while Issei attacked her from the front and she managed to hurt him with her bones, destroying him on the spot, only to receive a kick with great force in the back by the same brown-haired man that she had just eliminated. Without a doubt this battle would not be easy. Kinshiki was certainly no match for Toneri as he had already put him in several problems in a few minutes. If I knew that the battle had been going on for hours, certainly when the fights are intense, they feel like a very short time when in reality it is a long time. For his part, Obito did not know what to do because he was caught in the crossfire and could easily die at any moment. He had really underestimated the brown-haired and white-haired man, since they could have easily eliminated him and Madara, even with the Jubi. It would be suicidal, but he knew that if he wanted to see Rin again, he would have to help the white-haired man, so he used his Kamui and attacked Kinshiki, causing a wound on his back distracting him. Toneri did not waste this, and with one of his Gudadamas managed to severely injure Kinshiki. Gaia evaded Issei's attacks as best she could while attacking Momoshiki with clear intentions of killing him until Issei saw how Kinshiki was severely injured. Now Toneri could help him kill Momoshiki and Kagaya once and for all. It would end what Hagoromo and Hamura didn't do. However, Momoshiki extended his hand and Kinshiki turned into a small fleshy mass and devoured him in one bite. His appearance changed a lot. He looked at Issei and Kagaya with superiority and launched himself against Issei, who was about to evade when he felt the worst pain he had ever felt in his life. It was so much that he lost his transformation into Sage of the Six Paths mode. The internal doors and even his Rinnegan leaving him completely vulnerable to Momoshiki's attack, hitting him with devastating force, launching the incredibly best and leaving him very injured. Son Kagaya shouted in shock and then went into a rage, attacking Momoshiki with everything, managing to push him back. Toneri was worried about Issei's state of him because he knew that he couldn't fight those two alone, not even with the help of Obituary, who seemed to be on their side for now. Zetsu didn't understand it, but his mother, just at the moment when Issei received the blow, screamed with genuine fear and then turned to fury. Issei's mind space. He was in front of the 9 Baijas who were in their new forms and all extended their fist to the brown-haired boy with a smile. They ignored the pair of eyes that were watching what was about to happen. Out of Issei's metal space. The pain stopped as he felt himself getting stronger and stronger, so he wanted to enter the Six Paths Sage mode, but it didn't happen. He closed his eyes and when he opened them, the Tensogen was at its peak in his eyes. Now finally his power was at the level it needed to be at for this moment. I entered Tensogen chakra mode while trying to enter Six Paths Sage mode and use the chakra that the Baijas had given him then. Kagaya opened her eyes in disbelief. Momoshiki didn't want to believe it. Toneri started laughing loudly as he watched Issei. That felt like a simple grain of sand in the emptiness of the cosmos. Issei's energy exploded with great force as he finally got used to the new sensation his body felt. He immediately hit Momoshiki hard in the belly, throwing him far away. This power is incredible, but on its own it's still not enough. So without further ado, Issei forced his Rinnegan into his right eye. And finally he concentrates his power in the. But Momoshiki in his desperation launched himself towards Issei with all his power and an attack similar to the Rasengan but red and tried to hit Issei with it. Raiden. Rasen Shuriken. And he collided his technique with Momoshiki's, causing a huge dome of power, launching them both with force, although Momoshiki absorbed the impact with his Rinnegan in his hand. Issei seeing this came up with an idea and threw several three-pointed kunai while wrapping himself in the Raiden no Yoroi and suddenly disappeared to appear in front of Momoshiki, but he tried to repel him with a kick, but he disappeared again and hit him with a kick to the back of the neck. Issei threw a kunai towards Momoshiki and he took it in one of his hands while Issei charged a Chidori attacking head-on. Momoshiki tried to use the kunai to attack Issei, but he used the Hiraishin Shiki seal to change the Chidori for the kunai, injuring the Rinnegan on Momoshiki's left hand and damaging it by using lightning chakra. Kagaya launched more of her bones at Momoshiki and Issei, but they were deflected by Toneri using his Tensogen. Toneri launched several attacks with his Gudadamas, while Kagaya dodged them with ease. Dimensional gap. The office was staring at what looked like a rather disgusting blister on the red ground where she was standing. She smiled slightly as she saw it move and began to open, revealing a brown-haired honey-eyed man with a completely dragonic right arm as it stretched out. I circa N apostrophe T believe you're so crazy, mate, no one would have thought of cutting off his arm to prevent Samuel's blood from destroying it, said Drake with emotion. I can't die yet, did you tell Azazel I'm here? I asked Drake. Yes, through the connection of sacred gear, but you really used only your own power to avoid dying. Do you know that by itself, that is a great feat. It may be, but I'm not going to die for not reacting in time. I have several reasons to live, Ku said seriously. Which ones? Rias Gremory. Your sisters-in-law. Your remaining clan. Or your brother? The dragon whales asked. All of those and more, he said seriously and then put on a very serious face. I haven't lost my virginity with Rias yet. Issei has already slept with all of his fiancées, and I haven't had that much intimacy with Rias because of the damn Cows Brigade. How the hell does Issei have intimacy with his women even while destroying bases and attacking the Cows Brigade alone? I have not had a chance with Rias yet. Ku shouted very loudly. You may have the power to fight a dragon god, but you're still an empty-headed Ku, and you're not even a virgin. Rias raped you while you were sleeping one day before you went to the underworld for your girlfriend's knight and queen promotion exams. What did you say? How did that happen? The bottle of dragon apple alcohol and several drinks, mate, you took too long, and I doubt she was going to wait for you to be ready. Sigh, at least you're not an idiotic airhead virgin anymore, now just an idiotic airhead, said Drake with disappointment. Hey, that his words died as he felt Issei's energy arise. So you already raised your power, brother, you're incredible, Ku said shocked. Mate, that level is. Yes, it is at the level between a celestial dragon and a dragon god, Ku said proudly. At this rate he will catch up with you, said Drake. That's where you're wrong, Drake, he'll never catch up with me, he'll leave me far behind, Ku said seriously. Are you referring to power or the fact that he's going to be a father? Asia Argento is expecting her baby from Ella at this point, just like Arena and someone else, said Drake. Damn, he's an amazing guy, Ku said with a smile. Are we going to see that fight? At that moment a dimensional rift opened. Apparently so, said Ku. But Issei. Mama Shiki was on the ground already quite injured, but nothing could stop him from getting up once again. He prepared to attack Issei, but a second before he did anything he was attacked from behind by Obito once again. You damn mortal, how dare you attack a god, he shouted angrily, hitting Obito hard, piercing his heart and throwing him far away. Rin, Kakashi, sensei, we'll meet soon, thought Obito, closing his eyes. Issei saw this indifferently, but inside he felt sorry for the poor broken man who had just died in front of him. He bravely died facing being that far surpassed him and managed to hurt him directly. He extended his hand towards Mama Shiki and shouted Chibukutensei. After that Mama Shiki was surrounded by colossal amounts of rock until finally they were as large as the moon itself. Well, Kagaya looked at this in fear, remembering that this was how she was sealed, but her thoughts died when she saw Issei carry in his hand a blue sphere that grew larger and larger, Cho'odama Rasengan, and he threw it with great force towards the artificial moon, causing an explosion of colossal magnitudes, so much so that Issei used his Kamui and Tenari to prevent it from dying, while Kagaya used all her own power to avoid dying in the explosion. When the dust cleared, the wasteland was burning in flames and molten rock, while nothing remained of the moon or Mama Shiki, or that was until the chakra began to spin with great speed in Issei, to the point that it seemed not to stop, and then it happened. Iranesh Ringen awakened to its fullest expression. Kagaya was no longer in a position to fight against Issei or Tenari. Her previous battle left her tired, and even more so her effort to avoid dying in the explosion of the artificial moon. She launched herself at Issei, and suddenly an idea came to her to distract her. Page Bushin no Jutsu, several Issei appeared, and Kagaya focused her Byakugan more Warik Jayaku H Rimyu no Jutsu, she said, and then all the Issei well. After that Issei appeared behind her and hit her with a full power Shinra Tensei, throwing her away from her, and then approached her and said a few last words. Hey. Issei was petrified as he saw how a fissure suddenly opened in the sky and a large dragon that he immediately recognized appeared, which shocked him was its unexpected arrival. Of course, such a large amount of power gathered together should have caught their attention, but even more so hearing what Kagaya said. Oregon Shinem no, Kagaya said in shock, the dragon god. She fell to her knees, the being most feared by the Otsutsuki, the dragon god, king of kings. In this place we are doomed, Kagaya said, sweating from nerves. Suddenly a red trail flew and hit next to Issei, who was surprised to see who came down from the dragon god. Nai-san. Issei said incredulously. Issei-ku greeted jovially. It's not that I'm not glad you came, but what the hell? Did you come on the back of the big red one? Issei said. Well, he helped me with a problem I had, and he was interested in your fight here. From what I see it's not ending well yet, I'm going to It didn't end because Issei threw him away with a Shinra Tensei. It's his fight, he should N''T get involved. Or at least that's what the brown-haired boy thought. That hurt, you just had to say it, damn it, Ku said, dusting off his clothes without a single scratch or wound. Kagaya was very scared. Would she be sealed again? His answer came from the lesser chestnut tree. Well, Kagaya, time to die. Any last words? Issei said seriously as Toneri left Issei's Kamui dimension. I hate you, Hasuromo, Hamura said. Kagaya. I'm Issei no Hasuromo, and also he's not Hamura, he's Toneri now, die, Issei said as he advanced towards her. Snap. A snap was heard in the distance, and suddenly Issei was suddenly surrounded by a purple aura that seemed to make him stronger without knowing why. Kagaya launched herself one last time towards Issei. Issei hit her and the aura at that moment concentrated in his fist, hitting Kagaya squarely, throwing her into the sky, so that Issei then concentrated all his magic and chakra, as well as his senjutsu in the cannon that was formed by his Path Asura in his arm, launching a powerful and masterful beam of energy which completely consumed Kagaya. It's over, Issei said, and Toneri agreed. Issei, you're going to be a dad, Ku said without further ado, causing Issei to open his eyes in disbelief. A huge surprise. Issei blinked several times in disbelief at what his older brother had just said. Wait, really? He said in disbelief as Ku agreed with a monotonous face. Congratulations, Issei, Toneri said with a smile. Issei let out a very loud cry of happiness as he hugged the two present, jumping with happiness. I'm going to be a dad, he said with a big smile and tearful eyes. I'll have my own family, said the youngest brown-haired boy very happily. After that I turned to see Toneri. Let's fix that another day, in the meantime let's go to my house, Issei said with a smile. Let's go, said a monotonous voice next to the brown-haired boy, who turned out to be none other than Office. But that he undid the dimension created by the lost dimension and transported them all with his Kamui. Otsutsuki Issei Mansion. Asia and Ravel looked at Rias quite sadly on the living room couch being comforted by Akeno, but their attention fell on the vortex that was created in the middle of the place, where a certain brown-haired boy that they thought was dead came out of it next to a certain renegade brown-haired boy and a white-haired boy next to Office. Issei said, raising his hand and waving jovially. Issei-san. Asia jumped next to Ravel in her arms, while Risa jumped into Ku's arms crying. I thought you were dead, said the redhead crying. Azazel did not pass on the message I sent him through Drake, he said, surprised. What are you talking about? He said, still crying. Well, that's exactly what Ku came for, Azazel said at the door and then looked at Issei. And what are you doing here? He asked with doubt but ready to fight. This is my house, forget it, what the hell are you doing here? Said the brown-haired boy. I came to let you know that Ku was alive, but I see that it is no longer necessary. I see that you and Office succeeded, he said more calmly. If by achieving it you mean that he is crazy, he cut off his arm as soon as Samuel's blood made contact with his arm, then yes, said Drake in a monotonous voice. What did you do? What? I screamed, laughing worriedly. It was that or die, and I still have things to live for, Issei. Why are you looking at me like that? Ku said the last thing under Issei's mocking gaze. I'm going to be an uncle apparently, he said with a smile. Well, he had the Byakugan activated twins, in fact, he said, nodding while laughing and getting upset. I wanted to tell him moo, she spoke while Ku remained static. An eye for an eye, brother, said the younger brown-haired boy with a mocking smile. In fact, you're going to have three, Issei. The girl who hugs you and the brunette next to that redhead girl are also there, as well as the blonde with pigtails, and that brunette who comes over there, Toneri said with a mocking smile, looking at Issei, who was stunned, as well as Asia, Akeno. Irina, who was just arriving, and Ravel, who was looking at everything in shock. Oh, also that maid over there, he said, pointing at Burant. Six, said a voice that everyone saw coming from behind Issei, which was Hella. We are going to be family, she said, touching her belly. Irina-chan, Hella-sama, Burant-san, Akeno-san, Ravel-chan, and I, said Asia, smiling. We are going to be a big family, she said with a smile, while shedding tears of joy. A very big one apparently, said Ku, coming out of his shock. Add two more to the list, Kunaya Kuroka said while touching her belly. When? Ku said in shock. After you laugh, Ecchi, the two of us sneak into your room, said Kuroka next to Roswius, who was red almost to the point of fainting. What are you talking about? Don't tell me. Issei said as he started to laugh. Your girls wrapped you, hahaha. The younger brown-haired boy laughed loudly. Will I have a baby too? Office asked, tilting her head to the side in confusion. That's chilling considering you were in the form of an old man before, Azazel said, disgusted but intrigued. I don't think I have a specific gender, Azazel, Issei said, looking at Office. By the way, what are you doing in my house in the first place? He said in brown, staring at her. Office pointed at him. You brought me here, she said to the brown-haired boy who almost fell to the ground. Besides, Azazel brought me here earlier to see the Sekiryuite, she said, pointing at Azazel. If it weren't for the fact that she's no longer a threat to me, I would kill you for bringing one of the Chaos Brigade leaders to my house, said the brunette looking at Azazel with his Tensigan and Rinnegan activated, which scared Azazel a little, raising his hands in surrender. Whatever, I'm hungry, said Issei, making everyone drop a sweat on the back of their necks, although Office only acknowledged as she took him by the hand and led him to the kitchen, where Zenobia listened attentively to Athena. Giving her instructions on how to cook properly while something that looked alive was on a plate, it was purple and gave off a green aura. Issei just took the plate and used a Kaiten jutsu, ending the lives of whoever it was that I even swear I heard him say, "Kill me" as a plea. "Hello Zenobia," said the brown-haired boy who soon received a hug from the blue-haired girl. "Issei," she said smiling as she hugged him, "it's been a long time since you came," said the blue-haired girl. "I was here 3 days ago," he said with a drop of sweat on the back of his neck. "Haven't you forgotten yet?" The blue-haired girl remembered what happened 3 days ago and blushed profusely. "Well, whatever, I'm hungry," he said, downplaying the matter. "I'll be here for a while, but there's still one last thing I need to take care of, but that's a matter for another day." After that the girls started cooking while Issei, Azazel and Tighnari talked in the living room. "So you were behind Yasaka's rescue a few months ago," Azazel said seriously. "Well, you helped us a lot, although I was surprised to learn that you now possess 2 high-class Longinus, and 2 of them are from the first 4, Lost Dimension and Annihilation Maker." He put on a more serious face. "What are you planning to do, Issei?" "Annihilate the Chaos Brigade and its leader Lilin Lucifer, or also known as Rizavum Livane Lucifer," he said while his Sharingan shone in a threatening tone. "That is why I became a renegade, to ensure the safety of Asia, Ravel, Burant, Irina, Zenobia, Akeno and recently Hela," he said with a smile. "You don't plan on using it for anything else?" Azazel said seriously. "No," he said monotonously. "I understand. On the other hand, who are you, boy?" Azazel asked Tighnari. "Tighnari Otsutsuki, the last of the Otsutsukas of the moon, descending from Himura Otsutsuki, and I am here because Issei proposed me to rebuild and revive the ninja world," he said with a smile. "Rebuild and revive, do you have no limits, boy?" Azazel asked. "Obviously not," said the younger brown-haired boy, but then he opened his eyes. "Well, I can't go back in time yet, but I'm sure that at some point I will," he said, hitting his hand with his fist with a smile. "Is it my imagination or are you smiling more than before?" Ku said, looking at him in disbelief. "I was unknowingly falling into the Uchiha's curse of hatred, but I felt all that to hell when I found out I was going to be a father," said the younger brown-haired boy. "Basically less than an hour ago," Ku said with a drop of sweat on the back of his neck. "Eyes, lunch is served," I shouted from the dining room. Suddenly a couple of silver-haired boys ran into the kitchen, followed by a cute brown-haired boy and 2 blondes, behind them 2 other blonde boys, one of whom was carrying a console. "Uvali and his team live here. What if Sona and her entourage also live here?" said the younger brown-haired boy, only to see Sona Citri's entourage go into the dining room. "Nobody respects my house," said the brown-haired boy. "Many expected you to come back here to live," said a blonde with a purple-haired girl at his side. "It's not like that, Ubeluna," said Riser Phoenix. "Still, I have a lot of people living in my house that still live here. Baracriel and Shuri," he said just to see Kadre and his wife walk by. "I better shut up now before I see half the world live here," he said tiredly to advance to the kitchen where Surziches and Grafia were already sitting at the table being all assisted by the Phoenix family maids. Next to Sona was Serafo, and on the other side, he swore he saw Flavium Asmadia sleeping on a couch. "Is this perhaps a base of the factions?" he said in a dead tone just to see Michael enter with Dulio Gesualdo. Issei was stunned as Asia sat him down at the table next to her so they could start eating while Office sat on her lap. "What are you doing, Office?" I asked this. "Comfortable," he said in a monotone while Kaneko looked at her ugly. She made room for him, and Kaneko sat on one of Issei's legs while Office on the other. "I give up," he said with a dark aura surrounding his head as it seemed like rain was falling on his head. "Issei-sensei, ah," said Asia, feeding the brown-haired boy, which he ate happily. "So, what's up, Issei-kun?" Surziches said from his spot, drawing everyone's attention. "Not much, a faction of the Chaos Brigade destroyed over there, 3 super powerful ancient aliens dead over there, normal," he said in a dead tone still with a depressive aura. "Oh, and I'm going to be a dad," he said very excitedly, causing several to stop eating and look at him in shock. "Oh, and uncle too," he said, causing a cry of disbelief to sound in the place. He noticed how Zenobia and Kaneko lowered their heads later. "It will be your turn, girls, remember that I love you," he said, making both of them happy. After finishing the meal with a bunch of friends, Issei proceeded to tell everything he did during his trip, how he destroyed bases of the Chaos Brigade, and how he saved Yusaka alongside Kurama, who now lives in Kyoto. Then Ku told him all the events that had happened until his supposed death that resulted in the temporary loss of his arm, and it must be said that several were shocked to hear that Ku had a body made partially with the flesh and blood of the Great Red and the power of office. She herself confirmed it. When Issei told about his battle with the Otsutsuki, he quickly went with Ku and challenged him to fight, but Rias pulled Ku's ear and took him away from there. It must be said that Issei swept the ground with volley, who swore to become stronger to be able to match the power of both chestnuts, although Issei declared that Ku is slightly stronger than him unless he receives more power. However, then he thought of one more problem that in the future, it would be quite annoying, the Otsutsuki. Then Shiki and Mama Shiki were a problem alongside Kaguya, but thanks to that she became stronger, too much, but there was still a long way to go to reach the pinnacle of her power, the Jogan. The ninja world. 2 days have passed since the defeat of Kaguya Otsutsuki. Issei was currently in the living room of his mansion with the whole group of friends he had in his home. Issei-san, where are you going? Asia asked innocently. To fulfill my promise with Toneri, we are going to revive the ninja world where my powers come from, said the brown-haired boy smiling at him. Azazel became interested in this along with Ajuka, who went to see the young chestnut. Can we go? I'm curious how you're going to achieve this, and I don't think I'm the only one, said the fallen one. Everyone in the room agreed to what Azazel said. I want to go, said Office next to Karen, who looked at everything with hope, although it could be seen that she looked somewhat shy at Toneri. Whatever, just don't get in the way of our work, Toneri said seriously, although his gaze was only focused on the Redeed, who agreed happily. Issei just watched as he would literally carry 42 people with him. Well, it's not like it was impossible for him at this point. He was stronger than Office, but weaker than Ku by a tiny fraction, and that was clearly gratifying, because technically he alone had managed to get very far. Without further ado, he used his Kamui to take them to the place. Naruto Universe Remnants of the Earth. Issei and Toneri arrived at the desolate place where thousands of rocks colliding with each other in the emptiness of space could be seen all over the landscape, and in the distance the moon was slowly moving away from the place. He activated his Rinnegan and Tensegan, while the Rinnegan manifested on his forehead. He created a barrier to protect the others from such a hostile place. Being an Otsutsuki, he was not affected by the vacuum of space, but that did not mean he was going to risk the others to possible death. When the others arrived, they watched helplessly as nothing remained but rubble of what was once a planet full of life. Toneri, hold the moon, I'll take care of the earth. The white-haired man did not hesitate to obey the order, and with his Tensegan put the moon in a safe place. Chibukutensei, said Issei. Well, slowly the rocks were dragged into place, grinding against each other at quite high speeds. For Michael, Barakiel and Azazel, it was like seeing their father. While the gravitational impulse was already noticeable and how it increased as the sphere acquired more mass until it formed the planet again, but it was only a sterile and lifeless rock. Anbutsu SMZM no Jutsu, creation of all things jutsu. Slowly, everything began to take shape, mountains full of life, rivers full of fish, everything was the same as it was in the past, as if the tragedy in the world had never happened. Then some humanoid beings that were technically alive, but nothing, neither intelligence nor soul, were scattered all over the world. Now there is only one thing to do, he said as everyone went down to where there were thousands in one place. Kuchius. Ito Tensei. After that, thousands and thousands of things like leaves were covering all the bodies on the planet, giving rise to many ninjas from various villages in one place full of bewilderment. Where is Madara and who are you? Dadabayo, said a certain blonde blue-eyed man with whiskers similar to those of a cat, not a fox. Many got into combat stance until a pink-haired girl spoke. We are Ito Tensei Baka, she said, hitting the blonde on her head. But I also want to know what happened. She said as she looked into the distance at a dark-haired boy who looked upset. I am Otsutsuki Issei, and as for Madara, you already know what his destiny was. Those who attempted against the life of an entire world only await absolute annihilation. Not even their soul was saved, said the brown-haired boy, and as for what I wish, it is simple. But you blonde better look behind you, he said with a smile, making Naruto look behind him to see the tears ran down his face as he saw a certain Redeed. He always wanted to see her, even if it was one last time. Neri-chan. The violet-eyed girl said as she slowly approached the blonde, who, unable to resist, ran into her arms and hugged her, as if her life depended on it. Another blonde joined the hug. A family separated by the evil of a single being came together again, even if it was one last time. Sakura Haruno shed tears seeing the blonde crying her eyes out, as she did another pearl-eyed girl who was watching everything. But suddenly she saw a brown-haired boy with pearl eyes, and without hesitation she ran to hug him. Niji Nai-san, she said while crying when she saw him again. Issei watched his old comrades met again, but his gaze fell on a pair of black-haired men as they looked at each other. One of them cried while hugging him. No doubt Sasuke Uchiha was emotional to meet his brother again one last time. Further away, the meeting of a brunette girl scolding a black-haired boy while she was accompanied by a silver-haired boy with a bored look and his Asura path, the meeting of a team destroyed by such cruel fate. He watched as Yuhiko was hugged by Conan and Nagato, who was in his young state before his body deteriorated. Then he saw a long-haired white-haired boy being hugged by the imperative blonde boy while crying his eyes out. He set his sights on the other former Jinchuriki of the tailed beasts, and like a very happy fool he greeted the others, although the fourth Mizukage looked somewhat uncomfortable under the gaze of the ninjas from what was once his village. The blonde was crying in the arms of a blue-haired boy while a brown-haired boy caressed her head. Without a doubt, it was very nice for Tsune to see them again. For his part, the Tsuchikage looked with hatred at the blonde who was with his family and even heard him say, "Damn Kairoi Senkim." He could also see an old man walking towards Naruto as he jumped at him crying and shouting Jiji, while Asuma walked next to his father, scratching the back of his neck as he watched everything unfold. However, he did not come to waste time. It may be a bit sentimental, but he did not come to see a world full of Ito Tensei crying at meetings. He came to bring life back to this world again. Now it is time to return everything to how it should have been, Jedm. Rin Tensei. After that, an entity came out of the ground, while slowly the Ito Tensei came back to life again, including Mido Guy, who had previously removed his chakra bars. Ashina Uzumaki was really happy to have a new opportunity next to her family, and finally they would be that family she always wanted to be, but fate did not make it happen that way. She was about to thank the generous god who had brought everyone back to life when she saw him and opened her eyes in shock. Everyone was shocked to see Issei's hair turn completely white and he looked increasingly lifeless until he fell to the cold ground with a dull thud that sank into the souls of those present. A life was sacrificed in exchange for their own in an act of great kindness. Several lowered their heads in respect. Asia and Ravel began to cry as they left the barrier to go in search of their partner. Behind them were the boys' other partners, including Ku, who arrived at great speed to the body of his deceased brother, only to see him appear to get away completely healthy. "I used the Izanagi, did you forget that I can do it indefinitely?" he said with a drop of sweat on the back of his neck as he saw how everyone almost fell to the ground at his monotonous tone. He had ruined the sad atmosphere in an instant. "Baka, give me back my tears that I shed," shouted Sakura, who had become quite angry, while some of her moved away from her in fear of being hit by her. Izanagi Issei said, and she reappeared 2 meters from where he was. "I made your body recover the tears you shed," she said with a flat face, while Naruto began to laugh at what was happening, while Sakura looked at him with a flat face. "I didn't mean that," she said tiredly. "I want to go back to Konoha now," she said, while several agreed, but of course not everything is peace. Slowly chaos took over the place, and arguments began. The third Tsuchikage wanted to kill Minato, along with several of his most loyal ninjas, who still held a grudge against the Yondaime Hokage. Sasuke argued with Itachi, while Naruto and Sakura tried to make him see reason, despite his stubborn desire to start a revolution. Hinari leaned against the side of the Issei. "I told you that peace would not last, not while that chain of hatred existed," said the blue-eyed man. Issei raised his voice for everyone to hear. "Stop, don't you see that this will never get you anywhere? This will only create an endless chain of hate," said the brown-haired boy, trying to make them react and stop them momentarily, or at least until a certain idiot spoke. "Stop me, this world will never change until we have a common enemy," said Sasuke. "I understand you, but that enemy was Madara, now they can start from scratch with this new opportunity," Issei said wisely. "Understand me, you will never understand what I have been through," said the Uchiha. "I understand you perfectly, that's why I tell you that this is not the path you should follow, you must smooth out those rough edges to move forward," Issei said firmly. "You have never lost what I have lost, you will never be able to understand me," said the Uchiha stupidly, only to notice that the brown-haired boy lowered his gaze to raise it with an expression full of anger. "But I have not lost anything, that only under the same enemy will peace be achieved." "Nagato was right, only through pain will you understand," said the brown-haired boy, very annoyed, activating his Tensugen and Rinnegan perfectly at the same time as his Rinne made an appearance. "Then know the true pain and live it for yourselves. Feel the loneliness and pain through which I navigated." Having said that, the moon was seen in its greatest splendor, and reflected in it is Rinne. Infinite Tsukiyomi. After these words, everyone, including those who came with him, were covered by a white light which surrounded them all at the same time that the Rinnegan was reflected in their eyes. Not even Kuno office could escape this, including Toneri himself. "Live the hell day that was my life." After these words, everything went dark for everyone. Tsukiyomi Infinite PT1. We can see a little brown-haired boy no more than 3 years old next to his parents, who looked at him with affection, and next to them a brown-haired boy 1 year older looked at him excitedly. "Ani-chan, today is the day, right?" Issei said with a sweet voice that only a child can have. "Aye, today is the day we will see your impressive level of magic power," said an excited Ku. "Don't get excited, Ku. you'll see that your dear brother is going to show something as spectacular as you did, Ku," said the mother of the two brown-haired boys. After that they went to the ceremonial hall where the magical measurement of Hyoudou Issei, the youngest of the main family and second heir to the Hyoudou clan, would take place. The little brown-haired boy was really excited because today he would know how strong he was, since his dream was to be as strong as his Nai-chan and his father, whom he deeply admired for his enormous power. After that he approached the scroll that would calculate and show the power and talent of whoever touched it. That scroll was made by the Hyoudou clan as a means to measure their potential. It is said that it can even measure the potential of beings outside the clan. The little brown-haired boy took the scroll, which did not shine as usual, but no one saw any importance in it, so the priestess of the clan took the scroll and opened it. An overwhelming silence and a shocked look came only from her before she dropped the scroll. This fell open, letting everyone see what it was, completely empty of any content. This was something unheard of for the clan, and there was soon a complaint from a clan elder, Issei's grandfather. "Inconceivable, Gaoru, that thing is a complete shame for the clan. How is it possible that that brat was born without even the magic level of a human? Makes me question if I should have chosen you as heir. Bringing such an aberration to the clan is unheard of," he shouted angrily, while Issei looked at everything static. His life was being destroyed before his eyes. His grandfather, who until then had been strict but loving, began to look at him with hatred and shame. "That's a lie, and you know it, father. Ku is the greatest prodigy ever born. That aberration was born from her womb. It's her fault," Ella shouted angrily, Goru pointing at his wife, who became enraged and obviously complained to him. "It's your seed and the fruit of your failure. It's not my fault that you're so incompetent to force me to give birth to that thing," she said, pointing at Issei, who began to cry inconsolably. "Don't be hasty, it's not any of your fault. Sooner or later a misfortune had to fall upon our clan, but we have Kusama, your only son," said an elder of the clan, while the others looked at him. "That thing is not ours, just a way of life without value or importance, so I propose to remove that thing from the clan," he finished saying sternly. "You're right, that thing can't be part of our clan, you're expelled, failure," Gaoru said with a look full of hate and displeasure. Ku felt his heart break even more as he watched Issei cry his eyes out upon hearing that. "I have to stop it," he thought seriously. "Father, as the next heir, I refuse to expel you from the clan. I absolutely refuse." Ku looked at him as seriously as a 5-year-old can. An old man smiled and said, "Wonderful, Kusama, your heart is so noble as to show mercy to that aberration. Simply wonderful, Kusama," said the old man with devotion to the one he considered a god in the body of a mortal, a genius who was born with all the talents, and now a benevolent god. "I see, if it is your decision so be it, but in the same way from now on you can only call him failure or the unwanted, which is exactly what he is," said Gaoru seriously. Issei walked slowly to the one he still considered his father. "Daddy, why?" she said with tears in her eyes, receiving the answer. "Do N''T call me that bastard," shouted Gaoru as he kicked the little boy hard, throwing him to the ground while he screamed in pain and looked for his mother Ella, who with a dead look full of hate told him. "I should N''T have given birth to you," she said with clear hatred to the little boy, who looked at her devastated while blood fell from her forehead, mixing her tears with it. Another old man grabbed him by the hair while the little brown-haired boy screamed in pain, asking for forgiveness and crying inconsolably under the helpless gaze of Ku, who saw everything, knowing that there was nothing else he could do. The old man threw Issei on the grass and with a cold look he said, "From now on you will live outside. I don't care if you are cold, hungry or scared, you are forbidden to enter any place in this compound. Live outside your whole life, failure." Without further ado he left, while the little brown-haired boy cried inconsolably, saying over and over again, "Sorry." Night came and it must be said that it was very cold in the place, so he saw some dry grass which even looked warm, so he took refuge in it as best he could and slept from exhaustion between sobs. The next day the older children looked at him mockingly and reminded him that he was now the unwanted one, or else they would call him a failure, while they laughed, while the little brown-haired boy cried while he looked around and felt the hatred in everyone's eyes. He could see that in the window his older brother saw him sad, he was crying for him, a little warmth in that cold place. Too bad. Gaoru took Ku away from the window, leaving Issei without any comfort. Days passed where Issei had to be forced to eat the little he found, since they did not want to give him food or water to drink. Sadly he saw how the children burned the dry grass where he slept. Without a doubt that little chestnut would be cold that night, but then he saw him, a small puppy that had gotten into the place was curled up in a corner, shivering with cold just like him, a pair of miserable existence that did not know what they had done to have so much loneliness. He lay down next to the puppy, who upon feeling the warmth of the chestnut's body curled up in his chest. The feeling of cold went away and an intoxicating warmth came to him, unconsciousness claimed him. The following days, together with his only company, he managed to get food from the garbage, but something was something, right? Together, surviving side by side, being the company of a lonely soul in search of love, a consolation for the loneliness of the other, life partners. Children usually bothered him, but he tried not to do anything to provoke them into beating him. Unfortunately, it was not like that, as they beat him mercilessly while mockery and insults were hurled at him while the adults just watched. The little puppy licked his wounds and cried. The brown-haired boy stroked his head to calm him down, without knowing that it was the other way around. The puppy wanted to show him that he was with him. The innocence and love of a dog for its owner is something incredible. They can do anything for them. Unconditional love. The purest example of fidelity and love there can be. Months later the cold winter arrived, which was crueler than he remembered, but his faithful companion looked after him with fervor and kept him warm on those merciless frozen nights. But you've heard the words, nothing lasts forever. One day the children who always teased him saw him with the puppy, and finally for the first time he witnessed the worst side of humanity. If you are sensitive, skip this part of the story and wait for the next chapter. Her puppy Della was taken from her, while another Della held her from behind. Cry and beg for mercy or the dog will be beaten by you, said one of them with a smile that should never be on a child, a smile full of evil. But Issei, in an effort to protect his beloved canine friend from him, kicked the other boy hard, who angrily grabbed the dog and kicked him very hard, making him squeal and end up rolling on the ground. Issei watched helplessly and in horror as he tried to break free. That sounds more fun than hitting you, he laughed with complete malice. Hold it there, he said to the other boy who held the puppy. He picked up a small stick from the ground and approached while Issei watched helplessly as he got closer and closer to his only friend in the world. The puppy squealed in fear. And then it happened. It was a strong blow and the stick filled with blood. The dog screamed loudly from the blows that the human-shaped beast continued to give him, and soon he stopped screaming as blood spilled onto the ground. Issei's eyes lost life. His only friend of him. His only ally of him. He had died. The emptiness came to her, the pain was so great that she stopped fighting, her tears were still running, and her horrified face was a feast for the children, but as I said, nothing is forever. With his shinai in hand and incredible mastery, Ku hit the head of the person holding Issei. Ku had a dead look like Issei, but the difference was abysmal. A huge hatred in his eyes. A rage that cried out for blood which was not denied. The child had died from a single blow. And hell on earth broke loose the moment Ku looked at the other two children who looked at him in fear. Funny. A moment ago they were beasts dressed in the skin of children embodying cold-blooded murder, and now? Whose prey would pay them the same way? Ku sooner than later took the arm of the one who had the stick in his hand, and with a single movement he broke it while, unseen by everyone, they shone emerald green. Then he kicked him in the face, breaking his nose, and grabbed him by the hair and slammed him with such brutality that it generated a small crash, while the skeptical gaze of the adults present. He killed the boy with his shinai, destroying his head on the spot. The last one had speed. Behind Ku he saw the spectral figure of a red dragon with emerald eyes looking at him as his next prey to him. Ku walked towards him as he crawled away slowly, but unfortunately for him, Ku showed no mercy. His leg was deformed to one side due to the blow. Ku raised his shinai, and with unreal force, he blew out his victim's brains with a precise blow to the back of the neck. Issei took the puppy in his arms and began to pet him, while his eyes lost all trace of life. Tsukiyomi Infinite PT2. Ku looked back, seeing his brother's lifeless face as he petted the small innocent puppy that unjustly died only because of the crude cruelty of three monsters wearing the skin of a child. He didn't even care that he had just killed them, he couldn't stand to see his beloved younger brother in that state, he didn't notice that half a yard was destroyed in his outburst of rage. Ku, what the hell does this mean, said Gaoru, quite annoyed to see the dead puppy in Issei's arms, noticing next to one of the corpses a stick full of blood. What the hell? He said in complete shock. They killed him and I punished them, as heir of the clan I will not allow unnecessary violence, he sentenced with an insane calm. One of the elders looked at him in wonder, this was his god and his justice. Incredible Kusama, you have justly punished those who like savages, attacked an innocent puppy, he said, marveling at his own madness. Ku looked at Issei, who was still absorbed in his world full of pain and loneliness, and deep down he himself was crying. Build him a hut with everything he needs, if he ever lacks anything you know his fate, he sentenced again, but several swore they saw his eyes shine in a spectral emerald hue. Of course the old Ku fanatic was quick to say. As you command, Kusama, your benevolence is boundless. You are. His words were cut off when Ku replied. If you have time to praise me like that, you have time to make the hut, he said with annoyance. Then he approached Issei. Let's give him a decent burial, Ice, he said sadly, and the little boy just agreed. Without waiting much, the clan members decided to do what Ku asked them to do. 3 mothers cried that night, but 1 soul was destroyed that night and another was taken to the confines of wrath. Issei did not sleep that night, he just cried in silence. The days after Ku's orders, food was brought to him. Unfortunately, since they could not make sure that it was there, they only brought bread and water to the little chestnut tree, who was usually seen sitting on the ground looking at the grave of his deceased friend. Months passed and Issei sank deeper and deeper into loneliness. His birthday had already passed, and he obviously received nothing but resentful glances, as many blamed him for the death of the 3 children. The mothers of the infants tended to throw the first thing they had at hand at them as revenge. Too bad that on one occasion they were seen by Ku, who at that moment awakened his sacred gear in its twice critical form. Gaoru was fascinated since even with its most basic form, he recognized it instantly. The boosted gear had reached the Hyoudou clan for the second time. Since Hyoudou Issei there had been no other bearer of said longiness, and it was the only sacred gear of that level that reached the clan, and this was the second time it happened, and in who better if not in the most powerful Hyoudou in history. When he came out of his thoughts of him he noticed the 3 corpses burning in Ku with a small flame on his ring finger, where he had his twice critical of him. He did T even say anything, nor did anyone question Ku. No one would ever mess with the heir or question his actions. Years passed and one day in his days of solitude, he met a chestnut with violet eyes which had entered the clan's grounds, and upon seeing him began to play with him. They escaped from the grounds to play in a small park that was nearby. They played all afternoon and had the time of their lives. They called each other's names with enthusiasm and swore to play in the same park again. It's a pity that when he returned Gaoru was waiting for him very upset. "Where were you, bastard? Ku needed help with his training and we had to suspend him because of you. Accept your punishment as a member of the clan. It will be 10 lashes," Gaoru sentenced, and Issei received them without saying anything else. His back burned hard and bled a lot, but still he only thought about that pigtailed brunette and his first friend Hyoudou Issei. He didn't care that every time he ran away he was punished worse. As long as he could see her he would do anything and endure anything. Since she came into his life, after a long time he finally tasted a hot meal and felt comfortable in the Hyoudou house where they treated him with affection. Ku met her on one occasion when he went to look for Issei. Ku liked and looked for Issei taking him out of the enclosure in front of his father's eyes, and for the first time he did not punish the brown-haired boy, since the permission of the heir was equivalent to that of the leader of the clan. Unfortunately, one day he ran away to play and received heartbreaking news. The Hyoudou would leave Japan. Irina played one last time with him, and after crying they said goodbye, vowing to see each other again no matter what. Irina kissed him and swore that she would always keep him in her heart. Issei returned sad, and unfortunately he was discovered by Gaoru, who took him to the center of the enclosure and forced him to be on his knees. Issei expected the usual whipping with his eyes closed, but he opened them when he felt the enormous pain in his legs. His screams were choked in his throat when he saw the huge stone on his legs which hurt a lot. "You will be punished for leaving without permission, and you will be slapped by every member of the clan," saying that he slapped him hard, knocking out one of his teeth. Then one by one of the more than 300 members of the clan passed by, and only his cousin Satoru was missing, who instead of slapping him, hit him with his fist. "Satoru, that was unnecessary," the same Gaoru reprimanded. "Sorry, my fist slipped, uncle," he said, bowing. "Well, anyone can make a mistake, Satoru, but you still haven't given your share of the punishment," Gaoru said with annoyance. He simply slapped the poor chestnut with all his strength, who was already falling unconscious after such a savage punishment. Ku arrived at the place to see how Issei was slapped by his mother and looked at his father directly. "How I hate them," thought the older brown-haired boy with a lot of hatred in his heart and a growing anger. Gaoru, seeing his eldest son, spoke to me. "Ku, it's your turn to punish this aberration," he said, but opened his eyes when he saw his son's sacred gear. He smiled as he thought about the strong slap he would give to Issei, but his line of thought died when he saw Ku's fist hitting his own face with devastating force, while the twice critical changed to the boosted gear in its final stage. The blow was incredibly devastating, leaving Gaoru really injured, who heard Ku scream before falling unconscious. "Anyone who dares touch my brother once more dies," he shouted angrily as his eyes glowed emerald, and the boosted gear itself began to emit many voices, until the voice of the dragon itself sealed in the sacred gear. "Remember this, my companion will not hesitate to kill you, even if you are his blood." The words of the Welsh dragon caused fear in the members of the entire clan. The years passed and for Issei they were only insults, an improvement at least until he met a couple of somewhat strange boys who invited him to play with him. They spent their days emptying the claw machines and selling the stuffed animals to have money. These children were a little strange, and more than just looking to have money to buy magazines of who knows what, Issei never asked them. Every time he ran away with them, Gaoru would make him do heavy courses, but Issei did them without saying anything. Maybe they couldn't hit him anymore for fear of Ku's wrath, but he himself didn't say anything about the heavy chores, although it's not like they were going to tell him. One day a clan member arrived in panic upon discovering a nest of renegade demons. There were at least 3,475 demons in one place. Gaoru, in his eagerness to get rid of the younger brown-haired boy, sent him to the place to fight alone. Too bad Ku found out and arrived at the place. His brother was already wounded and the demons were laughing madly. Soon every living being within at least 5 kilometers around felt a horrible chill down their spine, and then they saw him. His eyes shone brightly emerald and a face of palpable anger showed itself. The air was getting heavier, and that feeling of terror was enormous, and then he was engulfed in a sea of intense fire as his eyes ripped open like a dragon's, and an explosion occurred. A majestic crimson armor stood in the air with a pair of dragonic wings and an entirely crimson aura. The battle was brutal, or rather the one-sided massacre. Blood flew in all directions as Issei watched everything in panic. Since the death of his dear canine friend, he developed phobia of blood, and seeing that massacre caused him terror, more seeing that the blood-red armor was stained with more blood. He ended up fainting from not being able to bear seeing the crudeness and cruelty with which Ku killed the 3475 demons alone, and missing the first meeting of the Red and the White, 2 older brothers, who would do anything to protect their respective younger brothers. Hyoudou Issei, governor to the Chatterine. The 2 wielders of the celestial dragons signed a pact between them to protect their respective brothers from the fate of the dragons by giving up that fight, despite the complaints of both dragons. That bloody night Ku became known by the title of the Crimson Fury. Some time later Ku entered the Kuo Academy, and there he met the woman he considered the most beautiful in the world. He introduced her to his family, regardless of the fact that she was a demon. They began a relationship that was made difficult by the elders of the Underworld Council. They tried to threaten Ku, but he killed half of the council and warned that no one would touch his daughter or his younger brother. After that, he received the title of the Dragon of Massacre. Months later Surziches challenged him and threatened Issei's life without him knowing it. They say that Surziches used all his power and still lost, although Ku needed a lot of rest to recover the skin on his left arm, which he almost lost when he hit Surziches with all his strength when he was in his true form. He received the title of the True Red Dragon of Domination, and on the part of Drake he named him the strongest Sekiryuite in all of history. Issei was jealous of his brother. Ku had everything and he had nothing. But he felt bad for feeling that way about the only person who loved him unconditionally, apart from Irina and her old canine friend. One day he was walking to the academy, and then he met her. "You're Hyoudou Issei, right?" a brunette asked, and he agreed. "The truth is, I'd like to ask you if you'd go out with me," she said with a shy smile, and Issei blushed. Tsukiyomi Infinite PT3. Issei felt incredulous at what had happened before his eyes as a beauty had just asked him out, and he almost instantly, with great happiness, gave his yes with emotion. For the first time he felt loved by someone. It must be said that 3 people saw this: Mitsuda, Motohama and Ku, who looked seriously at the black-haired girl. Mitsuda and Motohama, knowing the hard life Issei had had, were very happy and jealous for their friend, but they still congratulated him very energetically. Ku, when he saw Issei alone, decided to talk to him. "Issei, I know this sounds cruel, but leave that girl named Amano Yuma alone. She is not what she seems. She is clearly a fallen angel," Ku said seriously, but was surprised by the outburst Issei had. "How dare you? No one opposed your relationship with a demon, but you dare to insinuate that Yuma-chan is not good for me," said the younger brown-haired boy in anger. "Issei, she clearly has bad intentions. Listen to me, I'm doing this for you, you're my brother, and I only want the best for you," said the brown-haired boy, worried about the safety of his little younger brother. "You're jealous of my Yuma, besides your father kicked me out of the family," then he pointed at him. "You and I are not brothers," the younger brown-haired boy shouted angrily. He had probably been keeping that anger inside for a long time. Without knowing, he hurt Ku so much with those words that he turned away so as not to show him that he was crying. "Just take care of yourself, Issei," said the older brown-haired boy, retreating from the place where Rias Gremory was. Issei went to class, and as always the girls despised him because he stained the reputation of their Ku-senpai, things that Issei was more than used to dealing with. Once he left class, there at the entrance of the academy was Yuma waiting for him, who looked excited. Issei took her to eat a couple of ice creams and spent the time until he had to leave, so he asked her out on a date that weekend. Yuma got very excited and told her that he would meet her downtown. When he arrived at the Goru clan, he was waiting for him, and he didn't look happy with him. "How irony," Issei thought sarcastically. "You're late and your cousin Satoru already told me you're trying to date a fallen angel, but I'm sure of one thing, you're doing it out of jealousy of Ku," Goru said seriously. "I do it because I want to, and the same applies to you. If I died you would surely be happy," he said, walking away without waiting for an answer. "Take it for granted," he said, looking in the direction of the brown-haired boy with annoyance. Issei laid on his bed as he planned his date with Yuma. He was so excited about it that he didn't notice his cousin in his hut. "So one fell, well you and Ku have strange tastes," Satoru said, bored. Issei looked at him for a moment and continued taking notes. "What have you come for, apart from making fun of me of course," Issei said without interest. "Look Issei, I don't hate you at all. I want to propose something to you that you will like," said Satoru. "I heard you," he said without looking at her. Ku always has his guard down with you by his side when he's alone, he said as he left a dagger on Issei's desk. If he dies, I become the heir, and if I am, I can change things for you. Think about it, Issei, he said as he left Issei's hut. How would he even consider that, you imbecile? He may be angry with Ku, but I know he only cares about me, the only one who ever did, Issei said as he looked out his window at the grave of his old canine friend of the days passed and Issei only got more excited. Ku just asked him to take good care of himself, which Issei agreed with. He walked to the center of the city and stopped to wait for Yuma. A girl dressed in a strange way handed him a pamphlet, but he threw it in the trash. I don't know what you think, Gremory, but I don't trust you, Issei thought distrustfully. A couple of minutes later Yuma arrived happily and approached him. Sorry for the delay, she said sadly. Don't worry, I just got here, said the brown-haired boy, thinking that he always wanted to say that. He took her to the mall for a walk. When they arrived at a clothing store, she made him try on several types of outfits. What the hell do I do? I'm supposed to just come to kill him, not to hang out. Well, it's not that I'm unpleasant after all. I'll enjoy our last date, Hyoudou Issei thought Yuma. His train of thought of him died when he saw the cute bracelet the brown-haired boy was giving him. He ended up putting it on delicately. Yuma genuinely blushed a lot, but smiled happily. I thought I'd give you a gift for our first date, said the poor brown-haired boy, completely red in the face, who was very excited. Thank you very much, Ice, she said smiling while hugging him. After that they went to eat at a restaurant where they ate happily, although Yuma ended up giving her a taste of what she was eating, which excited the brown-haired boy even more. From there they went to the Kuo fair and got on the Ferris wheel. Damn, this date is too wonderful, and nothing makes my job harder than seeing him so innocent, thought blushing Yuma, who without thinking approached Issei when they were in the abyss. Issei looked into her eyes and smiled. This has been the best day of my life, Yuma-chan, he said with a radiant smile that, together with the sunlight, made him look even more beautiful than Yuma's own words. Yuma's heart warmed a little and on impulse he kissed him. The scene was so magical that both of them looked so tender under the sunset light. For Issei this was extremely special because everything was going wonderfully. For Yuma this was unexpected, and he even had to make a show of all his strength and will not fall for his fallen angel wishes. After going down the roulette wheel holding hands, they went to a small, rather lonely park. Yuma suddenly kissed him again, while hugging him tightly. Damn, why do I have to do this? If I had met him under other circumstances, maybe we could be happy together. I'm sorry, Issei-kun, she thought in pain. Issei-kun, to commemorate our first date, would you do something for me? Said Yuma. Whatever, sweetheart, said the brown-haired boy, not knowing that this would be more difficult for Yuma. You will die for me, he said in a low tone, feeling helpless. What did you say, Yuma? I didn't hear you clearly, said the brown-haired boy approaching her. Then she created a spear of light and quickly stabbed him in the belly. Will you die for me? He said with an arrogant smile, although deep down he was crying, and Issei noticed it. So it's my end, right? He thought resignedly and gave Yuma a smile before falling to the cold ground. He swallowed hard before putting on a cocky smile and said. If you want to blame someone, blame God who put that sacred gear in you. This bracelet will be a beautiful memory of our date. With that, she unconsciously shed a tear as she turned around and flew away from there. Wait a minute, a sacred gear? The brown-haired boy thought in agony. I think I'll finally have peace. I guess we can meet old friend again, Issei thought as he began to shed tears. Finally my suffering is over, he thought, and then he saw Ku screaming next to him while using magic to keep him alive. Issei smiled. I just want to die now, kunai-sen, I can't do it anymore, the brown-haired boy thought and said before falling unconscious. Everything was dark for him as he looked everywhere and smiled. Finally his order would end. Everything he suffered was finally over, and he was sincerely grateful to Yuma for it. At least it made him happy on the last day of his life. Soon he noticed 4 figures in front of him. It's a pleasure to meet you, boy. I'm Hagoromo Otsutsuki, known in my world as the Sage of the 6 Paths and Bearer of the Rinnegan, the man said calmly. One of the rulers of the afterlife. The brown-haired boy thought. I am Himura Otsutsuki, Hagoromo's brother. I am the bearer of the Tensogen, said the blue-eyed one. Then say what? I am Ashura Otsutsuki. I am the son of Hagoromo. I am the creator of ninjutsu and heir of Ninshu. I created the Senju clan and my descendants the Uzumaki clan, said the short-haired brown-haired man. I don't understand anything that's happening anymore. I am Indra Otsutsuki. I am Ashura's brother and creator of the Uchiha clan. My eyes are the Sharingan. 2 clans he. Well, my name is Hyoudou Issei and well, I'm the younger brother of the Sekiryuite. I don't have any special powers, Issei said, laughing embarrassed by the last thing. Oh great ruin things, Issei, he thought sarcastically. I wouldn't say that, young man, after all, now that our world was destroyed by the ambition of some idiots, you have become the heir to our powers, mine and Himura's being the most difficult to handle. That threw the young brown-haired boy off balance quite a bit. What the hell? Are you serious? But why me? I mean there are many people with much more potential like my brother, said the brown-haired boy sadly the last thing. You say there's someone with more potential than you, Himura said seriously, and then started laughing like crazy. Hahaha, your magic reserves are immense boy, and your affinity with the elements are all the existing ones. Apart from that, you know someone who on his deathbed doesn't he hate the one who killed him. Hahaha, ridiculous boy, there's no one in this world like that more than you, boy said. Himura still laughing at that nonsense that Issei said, something that threw him off since he didn't even know that about him. Wait, my magic reserves are on the floor and my affinity to all elements, this must be a joke, I have nothing special, and how the hell am I going to hate Yuma, she gave me a sweet death at least. You really thought you were just an ordinary person. Hahaha, I wouldn't give the sharing to just anyone you know, and much less my power and knowledge. Hahaha, but I like you and you are powerful, so I will make you my heir, the heir of the Sharingan and my eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, but you can only use it if you train, you heard me, said Indra proudly. Well enough, I won't question myself anymore. I will make you my heir by granting you all my power and knowledge, especially that of the wise ones like that of the toads, said Ashura with a smile worthy of an Uzumaki. Toads? Okay, this guy is weird, I like his brother better. Well, I'll give you the Byakugan, my power and my knowledge, if you train hard you'll get the Tensugan boy, I'll also give you the knowledge of the Hyuga clan and their fighting styles, said Himura. And more clans, I'm sick of clans. And finally I will give you my power and knowledge, and if you master the power of my two sons, you will obtain the Rinnegan and most likely the Rinne Sharingan. By mastering it and mastering my brother's Tensugan, you will obtain the powerful Jogan, which is the pinnacle of Dojutsu, you being the most powerful in your world, said Hagoromo calmly. The most powerful, you say? Not even if it were someone like Ku, I'll tell these clowns their truths enough. When Issei was about to speak, a statue of a giant crimson pawn appeared in front of him, and then Issei began to expel a huge amount of power. He opened his eyes in shock, and then rage came over him. If he had emitted that power before, his friend would not have died, and none of his suffering would have happened. He weighed all that as he felt his eyes began to hurt slightly. Without knowing, he awakened the Sharingan in a coma and went to end in its strongest state. The power stopped overflowing, but Indra smiled with joy as Issei activated the Sharingan from the shock of seeing his own power. He didn't know how wrong he was. Wow, I barely gave you my power and knowledge, and you already activated the Sharingan. Hahaha, you are incredible, although no matter how much power you have, it doesn't mean you will get the Manjikyu just like that, he said with great pride. Aha, if I kill the one I love the most, I wouldn't be able to kill Ku or Yuma-chan by proxy, he thought annoyed. Boy, we'll be here for a while. You go wake up and then we'll talk, said Hagoromo, coming out of his stupor. Issei just looked at him for a few seconds and nodded, coming out of his own mental space. After opening his eyes, Issei found himself lying on an armchair in the occult research club room, while being watched by his older brother, who looked at him calmly, knowing that Issei was out of danger, although he still wanted to look for the fallen angel who almost took his beloved younger brother from him, but when he looked at the younger brown-haired boy he saw that he woke up. Where am I? Asked Issei. In the occult research club room. How are you feeling, Issei? Rias asked curiously. Wonderful, he thought sarcastically. Well, after being killed by my girlfriend and being reincarnated as a demon by the #1 idol of the Kuo Academy, and then realizing the enormous power that I didn't even know I had, well, I guess, said Issei. Well, everyone, he smiled nervously since what the brown-haired boy said was true. You know, we had no choice but to reincarnate you. I warned you not to go out with that girl. I told you she was a fallen angel, but you didn't listen to me, Ku scolded and then looked at him calmly. At least I didn't lose you, little brother, said the long-haired brown-haired boy. Don't you realize that all I wanted was to die? Well, I can't blame you, brother, Issei thought. Well, let me introduce you to the rest of the club. Come in please, said Rias. At the same time, a black-haired girl with a ponytail that reaches her back and with an elegant demeanor entered to her left side, was a short white-haired girl. The curious thing about this was that one contrasted with the other, since one was an albino loli and the other a well-endowed young lady with black hair, so one was literally the opposite of the other. Behind these two, a pair of young women with blonde hair were walking calmly. Nice to meet you, I'm Hyoudou Kiba, Knight of Rias Gremory, said the young blonde man with grey eyes. The prince of the Academy Kuo Great weighed with annoyance the brown-haired. I am Gaspar Vladi, Bishop of Rias Gremory, it is a pleasure, said the little blonde with red eyes. Didn't this boy dress up a year ago? How'd Kaneko, Tori, a pleasure, the white-haired loli said monotonously. This one looks like me, just as monotonous, I like it. Emishima Akeno, Queen of Rias Gremory, it's a pleasure to meet you, Issei, my cute cowhide, said Akeno in a seductive voice. Did he just make a pass at me? I'm going to pretend I didn't notice. Well, you already know who I am, Ku said gracefully. I'm Rias Gremory's pawn along with you since we're both her pawns, said the older brown-haired boy. Seriously, there was no need to introduce you, bro. I am Rias Gremory, your new master. It is a pleasure to finally meet you, Hyoudou Issei. The Redeed said happily. Now I will explain to you everything you need to know, Issei. As if I didn't know about that world, they basically forced me to learn everything quickly when Ku started dating you, she thought while laughing, explaining everything, and he just agreed. After finishing the meeting they went to the clan compound where both their parents were waiting for them, but Ku was the first to speak. We're here, Ku said tiredly. What does this mean, Ku? Goru said, pointing at Issei. Kuhiba was about to speak when Issei interrupted him. What do you want me to tell you? That I died on my first date. That I was reincarnated as a demon. Issei said angrily, and Goru looked at him more annoyed. You should have stayed dead, he declared with annoyance while Ku became enraged but saw how Issei spoke up. He said it to his girlfriend. I would have been dead for me, said Issei, turning around and leaving when the Hyoudou matriarch spoke. Try not to embarrass the Gremory clan with your incompetence, he said in his typical bossy voice. Hi, anyway, I'm going to sleep. Tomorrow I'm sure I have things to do for the Gremory clan. Great, one more clan to serve as a servant, he said, the last thing thinking out loud, and this caused Ku to lower his head sadly. His brother preferred death at this point. Issei went to his room and there on his bed he lay down and was taken back to his subconscious. Issei's subconscious. He was again in front of the Otsutsuki, who looked directly at him. Issei, I must tell you that we regret not being able to train you properly, so you will have to do it yourself, since we will soon leave for the afterlife, so we want to say goodbye, said Hasuromo. Train hard and be proud to have our power, said Indra. Goodbye, Issei, I left you some sealed scrolls in your arm, use them to summon the toads, said Ashura. See you, young man, soon you will also be able to use the Byakugan and its techniques, said Hamura. Goodbye and thank you, said Issei, watching as they disappeared. Thank goodness, it would be annoying to have them in my head all the time, thought the brown-haired boy boredly. So you're the one who's going to be Argent, Cricky said to a huge nine-tailed fox. Just because father decided it I will do it, shouted a giant one-tailed sand raccoon. Stop shouting, Shukaku said to a huge cat of blue fire and black markings. What the hell, was the only thing Issei said. Look, kid, I'm Kurama, and from now on, the 9 of us will be in charge of helping you train. Hey? Was the only thing Issei could say in disbelief before mentally cursing his luck. Tsukiyomi Infinite PT4. Issei just looked at the Bijuus, who looked at him waiting for him to answer. He just sighed and said calmly. Well, I have nothing to lose anyway, he said wearily. Kurama looked at him carefully as he remembered the feelings his Jinchuriki experienced when he was reincarnated as a demon. That anger was enormous, and the hatred behind it was disturbing. There's something I want to know, brat, said the powerful Biju. Issei, said the brown-haired boy looking at him. Why did you feel so much anger and hatred when you were reincarnated? My father and brothers may not have felt it, but I did, and I want to know, said Kurama, looking at him intensely. Issei sighed again, but his gaze showed pain and loneliness more than anything, very similar to that of a certain Uzumaki, but at the same time different. It was like that of a soul that only wants to disappear. I understand that with a Sharingan I can show my memories through a Genjutsu, but I don't have the level to use it on a Bijuu, or at least not without their consent, said Issei and Kurama, acknowledging where the brown-haired boy wanted to go. He activated his Sharingan C for himself, having said that the 9 Bijuus fell into the Genjutsu at their own will, seeing each memory of the brown-haired boy, and suddenly Kurama's chakra exploded with force, showing his anger at that moment. Those damn humans, the most powerful of the Bijuus shouted in anger. All of his brothers were equally upset. They saw so much injustice despite what their previous Jinchuriki had been through. Tame was one of the most affected. Issei's life reminded him of Fuse, a life full of loneliness and pain. Shukaku also felt bad as he remembered Gaara's life of him, and it made him feel so sad as he related the lives of both Jinchuriki. Giki remembered how hard B's life was before being accepted by Kumo. Akua was still furious and crying. She had never seen such cruelty and evil in children. Seeing them kill so mercilessly a defenseless creature that had done no harm made her hate those children even more, and seeing them die so easily seemed little to her. He just closed his eyes and clenched his fists in anger. He couldn't stand humans for being such ruthless and evil beings. Here or in the ninja world there was no difference, they were the same ruthless beasts. Asobu was shocked by so much evil. He remained silent, but you could see him crying, since he never liked violence. Seiken was the same as Asobu and Kakuo. He didn't understand how there could be so much cruelty in the hearts of children. After a while Issei came out of his mental space to sleep, although the nightmares were still there, harassing him every night. The next day he didn't wait for anything and went to a clearing in the forest where he heard Shukaku's voice. Listen well, concentrate my chakra around you and not on you, use the sand and disperse the chakra in it, shouted Shukaku. Issei did so and the sand began to take shape around him until it formed a sand gourd on his back. Then he threw the sand in several directions, and then against himself, he activated his Sharingan and began to dodge them as much as he could. So it was for several days where he was pushed to the limit on several occasions until Rias and Ku went to supervise his training. In a moment of carelessness, Issei was not going to be able to dodge the sand shuriken, so he raised his hand in front of him, closing his eyes, not being able to see the flash that occurred on his wrist, giving rise to a hexagonal gold bracelet. From this in a flash appeared an iron ball with spikes tied to a chain that came out of the bracelet. The ball hit the shuriken, scattering sand to the sides, while Rias looked at the bracelet in shock. "Ew, double sacred gear," he said in shock. "It must be a joke," said Ku in the same state but also excited. "I don't know what the eyes are, but the bracelet is definitely that strange sacred gear. The adaptive armlet allows the user to adapt perfectly to any weapon, and with his balance breaker, he can summon weapons anywhere." Ku Issei reached his balance breaker so quickly, Rias said, shocked. Ku smiled, and his smile was certainly scary. "With this power you can reach the top," Issei thought, the older brown-haired boy. For his part, Issei listened to that with shock. The balance breaker was quite difficult to achieve, and only with a significant change could he achieve it, but then the realization came to him: the power of the Otsutsuki. "That's right, brat, now I have an idea that you might like. Summon the swords of the mist, maybe they still exist," Kurama said seriously in his mind. Issei concentrated as he felt magic and chakra flow to his sacred gear, and after an intense flash, several swords were around Issei, who looked at them fascinated. In his hand was the Kubikirabacho, and in another Samahita, which already had the other 5 inside it. Ku in his curiosity took Samahita and then raised an eyebrow. "This sword is slowly draining my magic reserves," he said a little curiously as the boosted gear made an appearance. "It doesn't make it slow, your reserves are colossal, and if that sword were wielded by any human they would have already died the moment they touched it," answered the Welsh dragon. Ku returned the sword to Issei, who smiled seeing that Samahita had accepted him as his new bearer, without knowing that what Ku had in magic, he had double in chakra and increasing as the days went by. Issei sealed the swords in a scroll and placed it inside his academy suitcase, and together with Ku, they transported themselves in a magic circle to the outskirts of the Hyoudou clan. Issei carefully kept the scroll and dressed in the academy uniform, only to see that Ku and Rias had gotten ahead of him, so without further ado, he walked away with the idea of playing a heavy joke on Ku for leaving him behind. Although the older brown-haired boy had a girlfriend and he looked happy, and he wouldn't deny his older brother happiness. He still felt bad for telling him that they weren't brothers a few days ago because of his foolishness. Well, at this moment Issei was walking alone towards the Kuo Academy while thinking about how to continue training harder because he wanted to awaken the Byakugan so he could use the skills that Hamura left him and get stronger faster, but he was taken out of his thoughts when I heard someone fall. "Ah, why do I always fall?" said a beautiful blonde with emerald eyes dressed like a nun. In her eyes she was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen, and he felt his heartbeat strongly, without a doubt the feeling when you meet your first love, but he couldn't stay watching, so he decided to act. "Are you okay?" Issei asked doubtfully as he approached to give her hand to her and get her to rise. Her hands to her are so soft, he thought. "Yes, thank you very much," she said, but a light wind blew away her veil, revealing her beautiful and innocent face. Issei quickly reached for the veil and handed it to her, making her smile and thank her for her help. It was nothing after that. Issei thought about how to continue the conversation with the blonde. "Damn, what do? I have to continue the conversation. I ask her about the weather? No, that sounds stupid. Maybe if I ask her where she is going I can accompany her. If that is Issei, you are a genius," he thought this. I'm lost and I need help," said the blonde with a smile and putting her hands together as if praying. "And are you traveling?" Issei asked. Lucky, he thought happily. "Oh, I'm not traveling, I was transferred to the church in the city," said the happy blonde. "Oh, I see," the brown-haired boy replied. "Well, it makes sense, Ella, she's a nun. What bad luck, Ella, she's a nun and I'm a demon," he thought, crying internally. "I'm glad I found a person as kind as you, it must be divine help," said the nun with great happiness. "Divine help? I don't even let you train," Issei shouted. Shukaku. "Don't shout, idiot, Issei, do what you have to do but don't forget the training," Kurama answered calmly. It must be said that Issei smiled, but deep down he wanted to put the Bijuas in a Sharingan Genjutsu to make them shut up, or rather just Shukaku. "Is something wrong?" the nun asked upon seeing the strange expression on Issei's face. "Nothing," Issei said with a tense smile as Shukaku kept yelling for him to get back to training. At that moment a child began to cry, so the nun ran to him and said, "T cry, it's just a scratch, remember that you're a man," he said lovingly as a pair of rings appeared in his hands and a greenish aura surrounded them, healing the boy's wound. "What a beautiful aura, it looks like medical ninjutsu," thought the brown-haired boy. "Look, your wound has disappeared," said the nun kindly. "Oh, thank you very much, On-chan," said the boy, but she didn't understand anything. "He's thanking you," said the brown-haired boy. "I forgot that demons understand and speak all languages," thought the brown-haired boy. The nun stroked her hair as she stood up to continue along the path alongside the chestnut tree. "I guess I surprised you," said the blonde nun. "A little, you have an impressive power," said the brown-haired boy. "Surprise me, you did that while ago." Haha, the brown-haired boy laughed in his mind. "It's a wonderful power granted by God," she said happily, but then put on a sad face and muttered, "Yes, a wonderful power," but then she heard a growl that scared her, and she turned to see Issei blushing and touching his stomach. "Oh, I'm sorry I scared you. Haha, I think I'm hungry. Do you want to go eat this?" said the brown-haired boy. "Idiot, I didn't ask his name, and for not eating I was embarrassed. Ah, I want to die," he thought with embarrassment. "My name is Asia Argento, please call me Asia," she said happily. "What a beautiful name," he thought. "I am Hyoudou Issei, tell me Issei." "Well, let's eat," said the brown-haired boy happily, so that the nun acknowledged and they began to walk. "Issei-san, I'm glad I met someone so kind as soon as I arrived in Japan," Asia said happily. "Wow, hahaha, I'm going to be embarrassed," said the brown-haired boy with shame and hiding his blush a little. After a while Issei and Asia arrived at a family restaurant where Issei ordered 2 hamburgers. When they brought them to him, Asia looked at her questioningly without knowing what to do. "Hey Asia-chan," Issei said. "Yes, what's wrong?" the blonde asked doubtfully. "This is how you eat it, little princess," said the brown-haired boy as he took the hamburger in his hands and took a bite. "I had no idea there was a way to eat like that, it's amazing," said the blonde as she imitated what Issei did by taking the hamburger with her hands and taking a small bite. "It's delicious," she said excitedly. "Ah, too cute, to hell, I'll spend the day with her, even if the same angels come to kill me later. I don't want to rush things, but I think I've fallen in love with her." "Asia," he said, getting the nun's attention, "let's have fun today before we get to church," said the lively brown-haired boy. "Oh, you're playing and you deserve a break," Matatabi said happily. "Hi," Asia said happily and Issei smiled. A while later we see Asia and Issei playing all kinds of games in the arcades until they pass by a claw machine where there were many stuffed animals, especially one of a yellow mouse from a certain somewhat old TV series. "What's wrong?" Issei said with doubt. "Oh no, it's nothing," Asia said with embarrassment. "Do you like Rachu?" the brown-haired boy asked. "I hope so," he thought as he wanted to show off in front of the girl he fell in love with. No, better said yes," she said somewhat embarrassed. "How cute, damn, I would screw heaven and the underworld for her," he thought. At that moment Issei put a coin and easily took out the plush of said character. "I'm a piece of cake," thought the brown-haired boy. "Maybe it doesn't seem like it, but when we were kids, Mitsuda, Motohama and I, we emptied all the games in our block," he said while he handed him the stuffed animal. "Thank you very much, this Rachu will forever commemorate my friendship with you," said Asia very happily, while Issei felt very happy inside. It had been a long time since he had had so much fun with someone, since the Hyoudou clan constantly forbade Issei. "She is beautiful." From there they went to a public fountain where Issei bought some canned sodas for both of them. "This is the most fun thing I've ever had in my life," Asia said with great happiness. "Yes, I too have almost never been able to come here to have fun." Then Issei put on a sad face and whispered, "Almost never." This was noticed by Asia, but she didn't say anything. "Asia, can I tell you something?" the brunette asked with doubt and she agreed. "Come on, let's go to a place where we can talk in private." And so they walked to another fountain where almost no one went. "I can't believe she's going to tell him this." While sitting on a bench in the place, Issei looked at her and began to tell her about her life. "You know, Asia, I haven't had a very happy life." Let's say this caught the blonde's attention. "You see, I was born into a clan that has existed for centuries, the Great Hyoudou clan, which is quite strict. As if that were not enough, I was the second son of my family, being born just a year after my older brother. Who a few years after being born showed exceptional abilities in almost everything, martial arts, use of knives, sports, mathematics, in short, a genius in everything." This made Asia put on a sad face, since she knew where Issei was going to go. "He stood out in everything but me, I didn't stand out in anything as much as him. Even when they discovered my low magic reserves they decided to expel me from the clan, but my brother stopped them. Even so I have been humiliated and ridiculed by the entire clan, except for my brother who has always taken care of me." Issei at that moment shed tears. "They never let me have friends, but I still ran away to play with Mitsuda and Motohama. Although later I will be severely punished for leaving," he said in a sad tone of voice. "They always called me a failure," he said as tears fell down his cheeks. "That's why today has been such a wonderful day, since I have met someone as wonderful as you," he said with a smile, although deep down, you could see the pain. Asia was crying quite sadly, so she decided to tell him about her life. "Shortly after I was born, my parents abandoned me in front of a church in a small village in Europe. Someone found me crying and that's where I was raised. Then, when I turned 8, an injured little dog came into the church. I prayed for him with all my power, and then a miracle happened. After that, they took me to a big church where the injured and sick came from all over the world to be healed by my prayers. Helping people," she said in a happy tone, but then she put on a very sad face. Issei-san, but before she could speak, she was interrupted by someone else. So here you were, Asia said to a black-haired girl with black wings which Issei recognized in an instant, activating his Sharingan. Hey, so you were reincarnated as a demon, Issei, she said in a mocking tone. What do you want, fallen angel? Issei said in a clear tone of anger while Asia was scared because she feared for her new brown-haired friend. You will not do that to Asia Yuma, she may still love you, but you will not touch her, or at least over my dead body. Since you are merely a demon's pet, could you please refrain from hurting my ears with your filthy voice? This annoyed Issei while Kurama and Shukaku began to get angry since they related Issei to their previous Jinchuriki. You're in the way, said the fallen angel, while holding a spear of light. This time I will make sure that you are completely destroyed, she said arrogantly. How dare you, thought the brown-haired man while the Sharingan slowly turned so the fallen one noticed it and mockingly said. That sacred gear is garbage and it won't help you against me, said the fallen one. Give me Asia so I can take her home. No, I won't let you take my friend, he said furiously as he began to summon the Kubikirabacho. Don't miss it. But from one moment to another Asia had pushed him to the ground. He looked behind him in dismay, and when he turned around he saw something that destroyed him completely, since Asia was pierced by a spear of light in the stomach and fell to the ground wounded. So I thought in dismay. Idiot, you heard her, you were supposed to kill him. Now we'll lose his sacred gear and we won't be able to take it back, said another fallen man while looking at a fallen man dressed in a dark blue trench coat. Damn, anger began to rise in the. It's not my fault, the stupid nun pushed him and got in the way of the attack, the fallen man excused himself. I have to act, Asia, hold on, said Issei while applying medical ninjutsu. I will save you, Asia, I swear, he said in tears. I was so happy that we were friends even for a short time, Asia said very awkwardly. No, don't give up, Asia, she thought. What are you talking about? There are still places I want to take you, to Karaik, to the amusement park, she said in tears while the fallen laughed at this, although Raynare had a well-camouflaged expression of pain. I wish I had been born in this country and gone to school with you, that would have been nice, said the blonde almost without strength. Not like that, please, no, come on, go to school with me, I will find a way for you to get into my classroom, said the brown-haired boy in tears and with a broken voice. You're crying for me, I'm so grateful, thank you, she said, and then closed her eyes. Asia, he said with a broken voice as his Sharingan began to spin rapidly. Why did you have to die, he said as he got up from the ground. Asia, he shouted sadly as his Sharingan changed shape. Suddenly I looked at one of the fallen angels, more specifically the one in a suit, and said. Amaterasu, and immediately ignited in black flames as she screamed in pain at being burned alive. Then she looked at the little blonde dressed as a gothic Lolita, and from one moment to the next, she appeared next to her with the Kubikirabacho in hand and decapitated her on the spot so that her Sharingan began to spin violently and change shape. They must die. He looked at the fallen man in the black trench coat and said Kamui, and suddenly a strange whirlpool formed on the neck of the fallen man and suddenly he disappeared, dropping his head and body to the cold ground while again Issei's Sharingan changed shape. I will not forgive you. I looked at Raynare and said Tsukiyomi, and instantly she fell to the ground while holding her head and screaming. Suddenly Rias and Ku arrived at the place. Inside the Tsukiyomi, Raynare was tied to a cross while the moon was bathed in a blood-red color with the Sharingan reflected in it. I sincerely loved you, said the brown-haired boy as Kurama's chakra cloak surrounded him while the Sharingan on the moon scratched his pupil. You will pay for what you did, he shouted, attacking her with force while his features became more savage as a second tail came out. He began to lose control of himself as anger took over him. When the fourth tail came out his appearance changed. This began with a frenzy of attacks against the black-haired girl who was terrified of what she saw and felt as she was torn apart with each attack. Then it got worse when his appearance changed again. From there Issei managed to react and get out of that state, ending the Tsukiyomi. Outside the Tsukiyomi. Issei, are you okay? Ku asked, but he was shocked to see his brother's eyes. What is that? He asked with doubt. Manjikyu Sharingan, the evolution of my eyes, he said to change his eyes shape again, and Raynare stopped screaming as Issei approached her silently. Issei, wait, what are you going to do? Ku said, but as a response he only received. Finish her, he said with hatred in his voice as his eyes returned to normal for a few seconds, then took the form of Shukaku's eyes as sand appeared around him, then surrounded Raynare as the sand lifted her into the air and said sand coffin to imprison her, and she screamed in pain while Rias looked sadly at the nun on the ground and a thought crossed her mind but was overshadowed when Issei shouted sand burial, and a shower of sand with blood and black feathers hit the place, implying that the fallen one had died. Goodbye Yuma, he thought. Then he saw Rias near Asia. Don't touch her, senpai, said Issei as his eyes took the form of the Manjikyu Sharingan. Even if I lose my sight, For you I would lose my life, he thought, and then he said, Izanagi, and instantly the nun's body disappeared to reappear alive next to Issei. How strange, I went blind, but I feel as if I could still see, maybe if I change Manjikyu. He thought that while Issei's left eye went blind, but it only changed to another Manjikyu Sharingan, recovering his sight. But what? Rias said in confusion, as were Ku and Asia, who remembered having died. Issei's eyes returned to normal and then said, I have used one of the abilities of my Manjikyu Sharingan, the Izanagi, which in exchange for the sight of one of my Sharingan, allows me to change reality. But apparently if I change my Manjikyu Sharingan I manage to regain my sight, he said, with an unusual seriousness in him. At least Asia is alive, he thought, blushing inside thinking about his beloved blonde. Issei-sen, said Asia, hugging him, are you okay? Said Asia, looking into his eyes with concern. Issei couldn't continue with that attitude when he saw Asia. For some reason his heart beat fast, and it didn't help that Matatabi made fun of that Ara. Issei, is the little one in love? When are they going to get married? How many children are they going to have? Matatabi said things like that. Yes, I'm fine, Asia-chan, Issei said with a genuine smile as he hugged her with great joy, but a comment from Rias worried them. Issei, does it not hurt you to come into contact with the cross on her chest? Rias asked while Ku was worried. No, should I? Issei asked with doubt. How strange. Issei, demons cannot touch sacred objects, much less if they have been blessed like that cross. Just touching it should cause you immense pain and harm, Rias said worriedly. Issei took the cross with his hand, but he didn't feel anything, but Kurama solved his doubt. The chakra protects you from damage, so you will not suffer any effects with sacred elements such as swords or spears of light, said Kurama in his mind. It seems that I am immune to the holy elements, Issei said simply while Asia used her twilight healing on Issei, trying to heal him so that he would not suffer, and this was seen by Rias, but Issei hurried up and spoke, I will not let Asia be reincarnated into a demon. Neither you nor anyone else, Issei said with Kurama's eyes and voice intimidating everyone, but his eyes returned to normal to look at Asia in his arms. I will never let you go through this again, for that I swear that I will protect you, so stay by my side forever, Issei said, blushing Asia and earning a mockery from Matatabi and Jiki, while his brother smiled mockingly. They grow up so fast, don't they? Rias-ku said, embarrassing Issei and Asia and earning a laugh from Rias. Ku, the younger chestnut, shouted in shame. Let's go to the club after we clean this up, Rias said as she used magic to erase the remains of the fallen angels. Already in the club room, in fact, occultism, Kiba was impressed by the Kubikirabacho, since the sword was incredible in his own words. Don't even think that I will give it to you, Issei thought as he watched Kiba look at the sword with shining eyes. For her part, Akeno kept bothering the younger brown-haired boy and the nun with teasing about how cute they looked together, while the blonde blushed heavily, although in fact being with the brown-haired boy who had just met him and feeling so safe in his arms made her feel happy, and in fact her small and innocent heart was beating strongly. For Issei, she looked beautiful like that, and it didn't help that Matatabi made fun of it, although Shukaku said that Issei was wasting his time and should once and for all start training, so as not to go through something like that again, something that Issei was a little saddened, but nothing that a few words of encouragement from Kurama won't fix. You didn't know this would happen, Issei, so don't worry, use this experience to become stronger, said Kurama, encouraging Issei. For her part, the white-haired girl looked at the nun with curiosity while she ate her sweets and felt like hugging her because of how tender the nun looked due to her slight blush. Issei-senpai is lucky, she thought this when she saw how the blonde nun hugged him, and honestly felt a little jealous, although she wouldn't say it. Everything was calm until Ku spoke. Issei-ku spoke with a firm voice, for nothing in the world should the Hyoudou clan know about your ocular abilities or your swords. Knowing the elders of the clan, they will try to take it away from you at all costs along with your eyes, he finished with clear concern, but was stupefied by the response of his dear younger brother. Those idiots, let them try it, said the younger brown-haired boy, activating his Sharingan at 3 commas, although I do not recommend it because they will know the power of the Sharingan at its maximum expression, he finished saying with Kurama's voice, which scared them a little, but the nun hugged Issei and said. Calm down, Issei-san, violence doesn't solve anything, said the blonde affectionately. You're right, Asia-chan, Issei said more calmly. I can't show Asia something like this. Ice, for now she can stay at my house or Akeno's because I doubt your clan will want to accept her, but don't worry, she will come to the academy to study, said the happy Ritid next to Ku, while he acknowledged at what the Ritid said. As long as Asia is safe, everything will be fine, Issei said calmly, hiding very well his excitement of spending his days with her by the blonde side of her. I'm going to go to school with Issei-san, what a joy, said the blonde with so much happiness that it didn't fit in her small and innocent heart. The brown-haired boy hugged her with happiness, and she reciprocated it. For now, Issei, Ku said, drawing Issei's attention, I'm going to train you, since I need you to become much stronger and learn to handle your power better, the brown-haired boy said clearly, while Shukaku celebrated the joy of knowing that Issei would start training. Yes, train lazy Shikaku shouted. And when will we start? Asked a younger brown-haired boy, fearing the worst, and so it was. Now he sentenced with a deep voice and an intimidating aura, while Shukaku was happy and Jiki along with Xiaomei said that Issei was resting in peace, while Matatabi told him that he would take the nun and have another romantic date, although he did it more than anything to annoy the younger brown-haired boy. Wait, let me regain my energy said Issei, but he was pulled by his brother and Rias while they looked serious, and Issei realized that he would not be saved from this training, so he did the most prudent thing that occurred to him. See you soon fools he thought, and then said Kamui and disappeared in a vortex of the place, leaving everyone shocked. Issei, you will not escape from your training, shouted Ku quite annoyed as he made his armor appear and flew through the window of the occult club and disappeared into the city sky, using a concealment spell, so as not to be seen by anyone. Issei-san Asia said as she felt herself being dragged by him to a portal next to the Kubikira Bacho, while Issei smiled victoriously. They will never beat the Sharingan hahaha, laughed the younger brown-haired boy as he disappeared from the place again. It's hidden in the academy gym near the pool Butchu said Kaneko. We caught him before Ku-senpai, said the blonde swordsman. Please do it, said the Retid lazily. The members of the occult club began to search for the chestnut for the rest of the day until Ku took him by force to train. Tsukiyomi Infinite PT5. After being found, the chestnut was dragged by Ku to the place where he would train him for 2 weeks. It must be said that Issei was thinking about how to best use the Bijuu cloak since he found the chakra expenditure it generated when using it impractical, so through trial and error he tried during his breaks that Ku barely gave him to find a way to give physical form to each Bijuu chakra cloak without combining them. His efforts were bearing fruit when he managed to create a sand chakra tail which represented Shukaku. Unfortunately, without the support of the other bios, he could not use more chakra tails as he did with Shukaku's, which helped him more out of interest in seeing how much power he could handle, being in fact of very good use. However, time passed quickly and a voice that everyone could hear and quickly recognize became known. You don't need to see all that, it's not that relevant, see what really matters and above all, see the path my life took by making a decision similar to what you wanted to do, Sasuke-cha. Although it must be said that in reality the brown-haired boy did not want to show them his whole life, but only the crucial moments, so that they would understand what he wanted to demonstrate. The truth is that rewriting everything is very heavy and boring, it ends up cutting off my inspiration a lot, so I will only show what really matters to finish this infinite Tsukiyomi saga quickly, because this already seems like Shippuden. Soon a scene arrived in which a group of people looked like they were going to go to battle, and so it was as they left in a magic circle. Upon arriving they saw that it was a rocky and lonely place where a strange seal was present when suddenly it shone breaking revealing Loki, along with Fenrir and his children. Loki raised one of his hands and summoned 5 copies of Midgardsormr and his daughter Hela, accompanied by an army of undead from all Nordic races. Issei noticed a strange cloak on the ladder, which with his Sharingan he realized was a simple illusion since it was really beautiful. Hela has a curse in which half of her face is rotten and is horrible to look at. Vali and the others appeared next to the team. Loki smiled when he saw Athena Waozu sent his daughter to her doom, then he looked at Ku and Vali, the celestial dragons hahaha I will have the honor of being the first to fight against them both, and also to kill them, he said mockingly, but Ku just looked at him with a flat face. You are very arrogant knowing that I am at the height of the power of Drake in his best days, apart from the Hikryuko of this generation is not far behind, in fact he is on par with me, said Ku with a half smile, although it was clearly a lie, since Vali was barely close to the level of a dragon king. We'll see if it's true, mortal, said Loki. Fenrir, Hadi, Skoll, kill the mortals accompanying the Sekiruyute. Hela, take care of Athena. Clones of my son, defeat that Valkyrie and help Fenrir. Loki ordered, then looked mockingly at the celestial dragons. I'll take care of you too. Issei looked at Fenrir as he looked at him closely, something told the two to be careful with their adversary, but more than anything in Fenrir, his instinct screamed for him to flee from the place, for his part Issei only felt danger before the wolf, but inside himself, he knew that he could defeat him. Queen promotion Issei shouted with determination but keeping his face calm. Fenrir ignoring his senses he launched himself towards Issei, while his children fought with the rest of the Gremory group, along with the 3 Citri. Roswius was in trouble because 5 copies of the Midgardsormr were too much for her, but then a lightning bolt hit one of them, revealing the fallen angel of the Barakwheel cadre level accompanied by Tannen, who jumped into combat against the 5 copies. Loki managed to narrowly avoid Ku while Vali hit him in the back, but he passed through him from side to side like a ghost. What a mediocre illusion, Loki, said Vali, hitting him from behind with a spinning kick, hitting Loki in the face while he cursed, then smiled and disappeared again. Hela fought against Athena who tried to persuade her. Hela, don't believe in Loki, he doesn't intend to cure your curse, we can help you and find a solution to this said Athena, the goddess of wisdom, war and death. I don't believe you. He said that only the blood of the 2 celestial dragons could cure my curse, Hela said angrily. Issei narrowly dodges an attack from Fenrir, so without further ado, he resorted to the perfect Susanoo and the Ashura mode to be able to face the huge wolf, while Hadi and Skoll attacked from the sides. He watched as Loki looked at where Akeno was defeating a large number of undead and launched a great attack. I have tried to move, but Skoll cut one of the Susanoo's legs, while Hadi rammed his chest making him back off, while Issei tried to help Akeno. Barakwil received the attack piercing his chest to Ella right in front of Akeno who screamed in horror, seeing her father to Ella die in front of her. Issei managed to get rid of Hadi and Skoll to help Barakwil, but when he saw that he inevitably died, he used the Izanagi to bring him back to life, but that second in which he lost concentration was enough for an unknown person to stab him in the shoulder and Fenrir to bite him in the belly. Issei flew through the air crashing into the cold ground as he bled out. Gu, seeing this, became enraged, and his power began to increase too much, while he ignored Drake's desperate cries for him not to use the Juggernaut drive. Rias was enraged, her young pawn had been fatally wounded right under her nose. Akeno was in shock while her father could not explain how he was still alive. The leaders who were watching the confrontation through a magic circle were stunned by the death of the young brown-haired boy, regretting sending someone so young to his death, but suddenly something impressed them greatly. Suddenly the chestnut's body disappeared and he reappeared standing 2 meters from where he had died. Kaneko felt the sudden increase in chakra that the brown-haired boy manifested. She opened her eyes in disbelief as she felt the colossal amount that the brown-haired boy now had. Issei closed his eyes as Fenrir lunged at him. Fenrir felt like he had made a huge mistake as he felt every fiber of his being screaming for him to flee, but it was too late. Slowly the brown-haired boy opened his eyes as he spoke just a couple of words. Shinra Tensei, he said as he opened his eyes which were now purple with rings. Fenrir was sent flying backwards at high speed as soon as those 2 words were said. Issei watched as Hadi and Skoll charged towards him. Banshmtenin, he said as he raised his hands towards the pair of wolves and black bars came out of his hands. The pair of wolves ended up with a bar each in the stomach and then at high speed, Issei stuck several of those bars, but smaller ones in the body of the pair, removing the large bar from their bellies, while the Rinnegan was now reflected in their eyes. They launched themselves against Fenrir who was barely recovering from the mysterious attack, managing to bite him on the sides, leaving him immobile. Issei was already close to them when he used one of those bars and stuck it in one of Fenrir's ears, who only managed to howl in pain, while Issei stuck more of those bars into his body until the Rinnegan was reflected in Fenrir's eyes. Issei noticed that his connection with Fenrir was different from Skoll and Hadi, since he was like a puppet that wanted to break his strings. It must be said that everyone looked at this in shock. Issei began to float when next to Ku appeared in a magic circle, the copy of the Mjolnir which Issei upon seeing him, raised his hand to the Banshmtenin he said, attracting the copy of the Mjolnir towards him, while releasing a small amount of Raten chakra to the sky. Even with your increase in power you are still a miserable mortal, you will never be on par with Thor, and only he can use that hammer, as if it were the original, he said as thousands of copies of him appeared, but suddenly the sky of the underworld began to cloud, while lightning began to be heard in the sky. For Issei it was stupid to try to hide from him, since he could see him clearly. After all his eyes were those of a god now. Issei raised the huge hammer to the sky in the direction of a place where there were no copies of Loki. Neither my Sharingan eyes nor these eyes can you deceive with your cheap illusions, Loki, then quickly lowered the hammer without moving from his place, saying Raten. Kirin from the sky, a huge dragon made of lightning, fell from the sky straight to the real Loki. Issei did not waste it as he launched a powerful blow with the hammer infused with Raten chakra. Loki fell victim to his own deceptive mind and screamed in panic, "Damn Thor," as he was hit by the hammer electrocuting him and sealing him. Issei then looked at a rock in the distance and raised his hand towards it. Banshmtenin, he said, attracting the one who was hiding behind the rock, being the one who attacked him, wounding him in the shoulder. The hooded man ended up with his neck in Issei's hands as he said. "Satoru cousin, I see that the Hyoudou either have a lot of pants or are really stupid," Issei said calmly as the 3 wolves surrounded them. Ella looked at everything at a disadvantage because between the cadre, the Valkyrie and the former Dragon King they had finished off the copies of Midgarsimer, their armies were almost decimated, but Athena was still trying to convince her. Her thoughts were cut off after hearing a scream from who had helped her brother previously. "Shut up, you damn traitor, you lied to us all this time, you hid that power you had from us by making us believe that you were someone weak," said Satoru in anger. "You're wrong, we both lie to everyone, my dear Orange," said Issei, confusing the Kotomatsukami. Satoru suddenly changed his expression into a confident smile, turned himself into Kuz and my puppet, the brown-haired boy thought as he changed Satoru's memories into someone who had always obeyed him and Ku as they conspired to defeat the leaders. But Issei's departure being the first part of the plan. "You're right, Issei-sama, Orange will return to the Hyoudou clan to continue spying on them," said Satoru, bowing before leaving in a magic circle. Ella saw this and was shocked, then felt Issei's gaze. "Only you remain," but then he looked at her in detail, noticing the illusion on her. "What a pathetic illusion, why do you keep it?" said the brown-haired boy, leaving everyone including her intrigued. "What are you talking about? This is a curse that I have had since I was little, this aberration that I have carried all my life," she said while a few tears ran down her cheeks. Issei realized that she was not aware that it was something very similar to a genjutsu, so he decided to dispel it. "It's just a pathetic illusion," said Issei, making a sign with his hand Kai. As soon as he said that, the putrefaction on Hella's face disappeared, and when she felt a change in herself, a small hand mirror appeared in a magic circle. After seeing that there was no putrefaction, she did what anyone would do, she cried inconsolably, while Athena hugged her to calm her down. Issei felt a lump in his throat, but then he heard a cry and turned around to see that it was Akeno. Issei watched as Akeno checked on her father while crying, begging him to never leave her alone, to never leave like her mother left this world. Something occurred to Issei, and seeing an undead woman, he attracted her with his Bansham Tenon and made some hand positions. "Kuchius. Edo Tensei," he said, so that the undead was wrapped in a kind of paper, and then in its place, there was a black-haired girl very similar to Akeno. "Shuri," she said in a baraquial whisper as tears fell down her cheeks. "Akasa," Akeno said in shock. "It's not over yet," Issei said. "Rin Tensei." With that, Shuri's eyes took on their normal color, and her body was now completely alive. It didn't take more than an instant for Baraquiel and Akeno to hug her tightly, and both cried while Baraquiel said that he would forgive her for being late, but she only managed to hug the duo and say that now they would be together. Issei smiled truly. Ku was shocked as he watched the undead army disappear into magic circles. Bali looked at Issei directly. If he revived Akeno's mother, maybe. Ella moved away from Athena a little as she approached Issei until she was by his side. Issei looked at her for a moment until his eyes widened in disbelief. Never in any crazy land could he imagine what the goddess had done. Hella was kissing him while Akeno hugged him from behind and thanked him for reviving her mother. Issei felt something move inside him. Bali approached at a beastly speed and stood in front of Issei and looked at him carefully. "If you can see my memories just by looking into my eyes, I ask you to revive my mother, please, Otsutsuki Issei," said the platinum-haired man. Issei looked at him for a second and then looked at Hella, who was hugging him by the waist. "If me an undead," she didn't ask but rather demanded. She, neither short nor lazy, summoned one through a magic circle. Issei made some hand positions and said Kuchius. Edo Tensei. After that, and just like with Shuri, the undead was wrapped in papers until forming a black-haired girl with blue eyes who looked at Bali with curiosity. "Rin Tensei," said Issei, causing her to come back to life. "Ready, Hakuruko, your mother is back." After that, Issei turned around, disappearing in a magic circle, leaving everyone worried, especially Ku, although then he smiled. "So it's today, Oda Taudo," she said, looking at the landscape. "Rest in peace," said another, walking towards Rias, while everyone saw Vali crying in her mother's arms. Guo City, 11:49 p.m. Hyoudou Precinct. Issei's eyes watched as the clan members began to surround him, shouting things at him until he smiled, and it was precisely that smile that scared them. Issei summoned the Kubikirabacho and without further ado, he split a woman of the clan in half before the astonished gaze of those present, and he only began with another slash, beheading an old man. Now that he remembered it, that old man always venerated his brother as if he were some kind of deity. Too bad the deity was him and his brother was just a dragon. He could feel how more members of the clan came against him, attacking with katanas and magic attacks, so without further ado, he rose into the air and said something for the first time since he arrived. Heitan Kamakyaku, releasing a sea of flames with which he incinerated his attackers and at the same time set fire to most of the compound and killed literally almost all the adults of the clan, and Satoru would take care of the others. Issei dodged an axe kick that destroyed the ground beside him, knowing full well who it was. "So you're finally coming for me personally, old man," Issei said, looking at his parent. "Today will be the day I finally get those eyes. Someone like you doesn't deserve them. Just look at what you've done," said the older brown-haired boy. "Nonsense," Issei replied dryly and then raised his hand to the side, watching a huge magic attack head towards his position, absorbing it with his black path. "You too, Akasa," he said mockingly. "I must say that it was a good attack. Now I see where Ku got his enormous magic potential." After he stopped a punch from his father, which managed to move him slightly, the level of a human, and reached to a high-class devil. Goru Hyoudou and Miki Hyoudou, the most powerful duo ever seen in the clan to this date. "According to what I heard, together, they would be the equivalent of a dragon king with ease," he said with a cocky smile. "Then you know you're at a disadvantage, you weakling bastard. Hand over your eyes, and I'll give you a merciful death," said the older brown-haired boy with a sly look. "I know you won't do it, although it's not like you can against me. Less if 3 wolf gods failed to defeat me. That's right, Fenrir." Skoll and Hadi were defeated by me, he said in lesser brown when he noticed the incredulous look to go see his parent and raise his hand towards him, Shinra Tensei, saying that he shot out against several cabins that were destroyed and the brown-haired boy received minor injuries, but Issei only appeared to one side hitting him in the face, stealing his magic power with his pre-top path leaving him at his mercy, nailing several bars chakra into his shoulders and legs. A huge ball of pure magical energy was launched into place, and behind it, several air blades came and Issei was split by all of them, splashing blood everywhere. "You were too confident, fool," said the mother of the younger brown-haired boy, with an almost imperceptible touch of pain in her words. Seriously, I doubted. Issei's voice was heard on a pole as the moon shone blood red behind him. After that he came down with all the calm in the world, before the astonished gaze of his parents, who noticed it and said in a mocking tone, "Ah, you didn't know I'm virtually immortal." The younger brown-haired boy had a face with an arrogant and rather dark smile, going to look at Mickey Hyoudou, who took a few steps back and then tried to flee. "Oh, you won't bansham tenon." With it his mother was pulled towards him and he took her by the neck. The brown-haired boy felt a certain presence, and in the place, despite everything that happened, there is something I always wanted to tell you, said the brown-haired boy with a sad look at the brown-haired girl who stopped fighting and looked him directly in the eyes. "I always loved you, mother. No matter what, I always loved you, and I will never stop doing it no matter what," said the brown-haired boy, while tears ran down his face, as well as the brown-haired girl who looked at him and smiled at him. "I loved you too, son, and I have regretted all my life for not being able to be there for you," he said, crying while Goro looked shocked at what his wife said. A feeling of guilt invaded him, and more than anything for her, the woman he swore to love all his life. "Goodbye, mother." With it a loud crack sounded throughout the compound as Goro watched as the person he loved the most died in front of him. Issei held his recently deceased mother in his hand, who without further ado, threw her to the ground with an empty look. Although inside he was crying, he couldn't help it. He always loved her despite the mistreatment she received. He always noticed that look of guilt she had, even when he claimed her at the Kuo Academy on the day of family visits. She only really went to see him, and he noticed that when he saw her in the hallway outside his class. Goro noticed Satoru, who was coming towards him with a slow pace and a weapon in his hand. He did not notice the blood that fell from him. "Damn monster, Satoru, kill him," shouted Hyoudou Goro as he felt helpless, unable to move since Issei had emptied his magic reserves, leaving him tired, and besides, those black bars prevented him from moving. "Biwo and apostrophe T do it, or it's not like that, my dear orange," said Issei, while Satoru arrived at his side, already noticing the blood on the weapon. "That's right, Issei-sama, I've already protected the miners, while Kusama arrives to take his position as heir of the Hyoudou," said Satoru, bowing. "Well, any last words, Goro?" said Issei, while Goro just looked at him with anger. "I'll see you in hell," said the older brown-haired man with mange. "No, you will be in hell, Amaterasu," he said, setting the chestnut tree on fire in deep black flames like on that bright crimson moonlit night, while Goro's final screams ceased. "Now all that's left is to take my place as heir," said a certain brown-haired boy next to Issei. "That's right, brother," said the brown-haired boy, noticing that Ku was smiling at seeing Goro finally dead. "Give our mother a proper burial, she deserves it," said the brown-haired boy as he followed Satoru to where they had the youngest members of the clan to use the Kodomatsukami on them and make them loyal to him and Ku, just like he did with Satoru. Ku stared at his mother's corpse as tears began to run down his cheeks. He couldn't help it, he loved her so much, and she was the only one he didn't want to see die. He didn't even care about the rest of her. Without further ado, they went home, leaving the place in Satoru's hands. When Asia arrived, she asked him what had happened, but he just grabbed her chin and kissed her. "I need to talk to Hela, I know she's here, and I need to ask her for her." After that, he went to the room where she was freezing and asked her for a favor that even though the goddess didn't like it, she ended up doing it. Returning to the living room, he spent his time with the girls until a magic circle appeared in the place, these demons being at the service of the elders of the Council of the Underworld, and these seeing Issei arrive raising their voices. "Otsutsuki Issei, you are under arrest for attacking humans, and you will be brought before the Council of the Underworld," said the leader as he walked to Issei, who only extended his hands forward with a smile. Everything went according to his plan. Tsukiyomi Infinite PT6. We can see Issei in front of the members of the Council of Elders, the Mayu, and behind him the Gremory entourage, Ku and Vali's team watching attentively what was happening in front of them. "Otsutsuki Issei, you are accused of massacring all the adults of the Hyoudou clan, and not only that, but of manipulating the minds of all the young people of a human clan. Do you have anything to say?" said one of the members of the Council of Elders. "They deserved something thousands of times worse," Issei declared, while his Rinnegan glowed dangerously. "You understand that your mistake has severe consequences," said the old man seriously and annoyed. "Obviously," he declared with a cold and indifferent attitude. Then you know what we'll say now. He didn't finish saying it because Ku appeared in front of him with his boosted gear and a dragon chute about to be fired. Think carefully about the next words you say. I've already wiped out half the council once, don't force me to do it again, Ku said with a really serious and annoyed look that showed he wasn't joking or lying at all. Stop Ku, there's no need for you to get involved, Issei said coldly. Ku was stunned and slowly retreated to his previous place with sadness and a very deep. There are no excuses or influences that will save you, Otsutsuki Issei, you are sentenced to death by extracting your evil pieces. Any last request, said the old man seriously. How are you? Issei said as he stretched out his hand. This, he said, dropping a red pawn piece which fell to the floor. See you soon, he said, turning around. Bye, Gremory, he said, leaving the place using Kamui. Human world residence Otsutsuki. As soon as he arrived he felt Hela's presence. He walked through his mansion to get his most precious belongings. Well, he took the 7 swords of the mist and stored them in a seal of Fuinjutsu and Nordic runes which Hela taught him. She arrived accompanied by her faithful pet Garm, the terrible guardian hound of Helheim and Niflheim. It must be said that Fenrir, Skoll and Hadi were next to Issei with the Rinnegan's eyes reflected in theirs. Then you will go on a trip, said Hela. That's right, I'll go take out the trash, said the brown-haired boy in a monotonous tone. If you need somewhere to stay, you'll always have a good place in Helheim, not even Odin would go there, Hela said, looking into her eyes with tenderness. I'll take your word for it, he said dryly. See you later, Hela, he said as he left in a vortex and appeared near a building somewhere in the underworld. This is the base in Christine Lucifer's memories. Well, it's time to attack, Issei thought, and without further ado, he rose to a great height and extended his arms. Shinra Tensei. After that, the wave of gravitational repulsion hit the building, demolishing it completely and killing a large part of those who were in the place, while others came out of the remaining rubble and attacked Issei in a fit of rage without noticing that Fenrir, Skoll and Hadi surrounded them and finally attacked them, starting with a massacre. Issei used his Banshee Tenon to attract a demon girl whom he grabbed by the neck. Where are the other bases of the Cows Brigade? Tell me and you will come out alive, said the brown-haired man in a monotonous voice, and the Rinnegan shining dangerously. Then, never, damn it, she said with difficulty as Issei tightened his grip on her neck more and more, then he lightened his grip. I see, he said with regret and then formed a mocking smile. It's not like I can't get that information from your soul, he said, while using his human path, receiving the memories of this useless one, he said, throwing her corpse to the side and repeated the process with several more until there was no one left, but his information was complete, so they are in that place in the underworld, he said using Kamui appearing in some mountains far away from any territory of fallen angels or demons. He advanced through some caves until he reached some doors which were being guarded by a pair of guards who were soon killed by the brown-haired boy using a Doten Jutsu, creating stalactites that pierced a pair of demons to later use his human path to obtain more information, which turned out to be very helpful. Once the Cows Brigade's lair was cleared, he went after more of them day after day, wiping out a large part of the former Mao faction. One day while he was looking at the horizon as the sun set in the mountains, he used his Kamui to go to Helheim with Hela. She was delighted and received him with food and many things, but Issei was brief. He wanted an undead to do a certain forbidden jutsu, which would allow him to bring a certain brown-haired boy back to life, and so it was. Hyoudou didn't understand what he was doing there, but seeing his dear son, he only tried to attack him, although it was useless because his body didn't respond. What the hell is going on? He said, motionless, only to see Issei take out several small black bars from his fingers and implant them in his body, losing all control of his body except his consciousness. Issei used his Rin Tensei to bring him back to life to keep him as his puppet. After that he remembered in his memories of Ashura, a certain black-haired man with eyebrows, so without further ado, he brought him back to life as an Edo Tensei. He was surprised to be alive until Issei explained to him what an Edo Tensei was and what happened to the ninja world. I see, it's a terrible tragedy, Mido Guy said with regret. I will restore your world in the future, and that is why I want you to help me in my mission. I want to end the evil that ravages my world at this moment. When we finish doing it, or at least until I restore your world, I will need your help. Above all, help me train and open the internal doors, said the brown-haired man seriously. Yosh, I'll help you, young man, your goal is very youthful, so we will train until your flames of youth burn like never before, said the big-browed boy with emotion that made a drop of sweat appear on the back of the brown-haired boy's neck. Yes, but first I will put these chakra bars on you that will make you one of my 6 paths. You will be the Ashura path, said the brown-haired man, while he put a few bars on his eyebrows, which he noticed that his body felt almost indestructible. Weeks passed and the chestnut learned to handle the internal doors, as well as to use its paths in a better way. Fenrir was his animal path Chikushim. Adi his human path Ninjin. Skoll his Preta path Gakudm. Hyoudou his Diva path Ten. I was so happy that I was able to finish the course Shirado. A demon who once killed her from her Naraka path Jigakidm. And the same is his outer path of Elajedm. After that he set out with his 6 paths in search of a Cow's Brigade base. Then while searching a base in the dimensional gap he saw her Ella, that Ella blonde hair and emerald eyes Ella. He did not hesitate for a second to take her in his arms and protect her from the hostile environment by taking her home. There she cried in his arms while he sent Ten with his Kamui to where the others were. With Tendo. The whole air in the place became heavy and dropped several degrees and then. A huge explosion of power came from Ku. Your demon is called Shalba, said Drake from the boosted gear, calling the attention of the aforementioned. You have made the worst mistake of your. His words died when a simple pair of words rang out in the room. Banshmtenin and Shalba flew to the hand of a certain chestnut tree that they believed was dead and which carried the Rinnegan. Father, what are you doing here? Ku said in shock. You should be more than dead, damn you, I shouted in anger. I am one of the paths of truth, Tendu, said the brown-haired man with the Rinnegan, while he threw Shalba to where Diodora's corpse was while he touched the ground. Kuchius no jutsu, and after a bit of smoke another 5 more came out, and one was the beloved brown-haired man with a certain blonde who was crying in his arms. Kikishim, kill them, said Issei as Fenrir walked up to Shalba and with a simple bite, devoured half of his body while he disappeared and reappeared in the same place. Izanagi, it's not like it was that easy for you to die. Receive your mortal punishment, he declared, while the other paths walked toward Shalba who tried to flee but remained motionless, looking at a shadow below him. Shuridan path shows you the 8 internal doors and your flames of youth, he said, so that the one with green clothing and black bowl-shaped hair advanced towards Shalba. Yash, I will show you the true flames of youth. Kamen Kai, he said, and after that at a blinding speed he hit Shalba in the face. Kickman Kai, Seiman Kai, after that his skin turned red and his veins stood out as he advanced at high speeds and hit him even harder, leaving Shalba very injured. Shmon Kai. Thoman Kai, after this a greenish chakra aura began to release from his body as he fiercely hit Shalba in a combo of kicks and punches. Kamen Kai. Himan Kai, after this the chakra aura turned blue and his blows seemed to catch fire. Apparently Issei used the Izanagi several times because Shalba died repeatedly from the serious injuries he received from the Shuridan path. Shimon Kai, after that his chakra aura was red and his blows evaporated the blood of the same Shalba who tried by any means to escape but it was impossible for him. Enough Shuridan, you've already shown what the calls of youth can do, said Issei while Shalba was in the air. After that Issei's right arm turned into a cannon, after he fired a gigantic beam of energy. I curse you, brother of the Sekiruyute, Shalba shouted as he was consumed by the attack and disappeared. It's over, said Issei, but then he noticed the presence of the same little gothic loli that he gave to Karen at the meeting of the factions, the same office Ouroboros. She looked at the Shuridan path with interest. Part of your soul is someone else but your body is not alive, how is that possible? Office asked curiously. It's hard to explain. To summarize, they brought my soul to a living container and used a jutsu called Ito Tensei, but they added these chakra bars and turned me into a path of truth or something like that. But the best of all, now my flames of youth burn stronger than ever, shouted the subject with flames in his eyes. By the way, I'm Ito Guy, he said while smiling and a shine appeared on his teeth. I am Office Ouroboros, said the gothic loli. What are the flames of youth? She said with doubt. And so Mido Guy explained to him that they were the flames of youth, but Issei watched the leaders arrive until Office stood next to Ku. Finally the hateful red cum, said Office looking at the sky where the enormous beast emerged from a fissure in space, emerging imposingly. The big red one day I will defeat him, said Volley looking at him. That's if I don't get ahead of myself, said Ku. What are you talking about? I will definitely be the one to defeat him, Issei said between the two, while Guy continued with his explanation of the flames of youth. See you later, Ku, he said turning around. See you later, girls, he said with a smile, but before leaving Surziches spoke. Otsutsuki Issei, right now you are considered a renegade demon, but I want to know something, are you responsible for the attacks on the Cows Brigade? Doridid asked. That's right, I just take the trash out where it belongs, and I'll keep doing it until the Cows Brigade disappears forever. Even you defeated me? Office asked monotonously. Maybe I will, but if you decide on another path I will forgive you, said the brown-haired boy. Office just smiled, although her smile was noticeably fake, as it was obvious she didn't know how to express herself, and she simply left the place. I'm leaving, but first Banshmtenin, he said pointing at Asia who flew towards him to end up in his arms. I love you, Asia. After that he kissed her, and then he used the same ability again on Arena and Zenobia to kiss them too. Then Kaneko and Akeno went. I wish Ravel and Burant were there, say hello to them for me. After that he left using Kamui. Human World Kyoto. Issei appeared in a hotel where he was staying, looked to the east and said, "So here I am too," he said as he felt several annoying presences, but he would leave them for later. For the moment he would rent a room and sleep peacefully, because the next day he would attack the last base of the ancient Mao faction, to finish it off and start with those imbeciles of the hero faction. The very next day he went to the underworld again to attack the last base of the ancient Mao faction, where there were more enemies than he thought. So without further ado, he attacked with his Shinra Tensei and destroyed the base, while his paths were in charge of carrying out the massacre, until the information obtained by Hadi came to his mind, which left him shocked in more than one way. Flippeth, he said in shock as with one hand he stopped the fist of a demon, just to use the human path in the Euclid Lucifuge. Risivum Livane Lucifer, he said, annoyed as he recognized them in the memories of Christine Lucifer, the sister of Vali Lucifer. After that, more memories of more victims came to him until he came to one in particular that bothered him. The hero faction plans to kidnap the leader of Hyoudou. What do you think, Kurama? Should we join? Said the brown-haired boy. Do it, boy, Kurama told him in his mind. After a few days he went to Hyoudou again and decided to take a walk but was interrupted by. You're not from Hyoudou, who are you? Where's my mother? Demanded the little kitsune. Issei just looked at her carefully, a girl with blonde hair and dressed as a Hime-Maiko, with fox ears and 9 tails on her back. He decided to answer her. I'm not from Hyoudou, I'm from Kuo. I'm Otsutsuki Issei, and I don't know where your mom is, but I'm willing to help you, said the brown-haired boy calmly. Seriously, would you help me? Thank you, Edo. I am a Kunu, a Yaokai Kitsune, a Kyubi no Yauko, she said with sadness the last thing. At that moment several Yaokai guards stood at her sides, flanking her as they prepared to attack the possible intruder. What do you want from Princess Kunu? Where is Yusaka-sama? Speak now or perish, said one of them, which was a red oni with a large club in his hands. Stop it, he just offered me his help to find my mother, said Kunu. We cannot trust the princess, it is clear that he is a stranger, the oni stressed. While you were talking bad about me I started to track a chakra signature identical to hers, and it's in Niju Castle. However, whatever her kidnappers want they will act tonight, and I have a bad feeling, said the brown-haired boy in Toad Sage mode, and then looked at Kunu. I will bring your mother safely back, it's a promise, he said with a warm smile. Don't listen to him, princess, it could be a trap, said the oni. Hush, can I go with you? Said the little Hime-Maiko. It's no problem for me, said the brown-haired boy as he turned around to leave the temple and began to walk towards the exit, accompanied by the Hime-Maiko and her guards. Kurama didn't know what to think about this since he was the 9-tailed Bijuu, the powerful Kyubi no Yauko, even though he hated being called that, but next to Issei was a Kyubi too, so he didn't know what to think about it. As they walked through the city a mist appeared around them. Issei activated his Sharingan instinctively and looked at those in front of them. Dimension lost. One of the 13 Longinus, I have heard of its current and pathetic bearer Georg Faust, Issei said with displeasure, then he set his gaze on the child of the group Annihilation Maker, a quite dangerous Longinus in the wrong hands, even more so in a brat like you. Leonardo, Blade Blacksmith is also useless, cannot fight me even with all your power gene. Variant detonation undoubtedly useless against my path, assure Heracles, twice critical even in your balance breaker, you are no match for me, I would defeat you with a cage bunshin, even if you use your demonic swords. Graham and his dragon slayer power is ineffective against me, Belming is no match for any Futen Jutsu, nodding is a bad joke for me, Sharingan or my Byakugan. Turfing is no match for any mist sword, Dane's leaf is similar to a Hyoten element jutsu, you have nothing to face me, the last and most dangerous but equally ineffective, the true Longinus and its current wielder Cao Cao, your balance breaker and your physical abilities are the problem, but it is useless if I use the Tendo path. Now I will ask you, what is a faction as problematic as the hero faction doing in Hyoudou? Issei said, bored. You are the one they call the new god of the 6 paths, what a joke, although I am curious about your strength and your abilities, but above all how you got that knowledge from us, said Cao Cao. Easily with my human path, although I must say that killing to get information is annoying, although my Tsukiyomi is more effective if it were torture, said the brown-haired man calmly. You kidnapped my mother? What do you intend to do with her? Kunu asked. Your mother will have to help in our experiment, Cao Cao said with a smile. Are you experimenting? Kunu said incredulously. But before that I would like to measure my strength with that god of the 6 paths, he said with a challenging look. If you wish to die, suicide is a viable option. Take some bleach or hang yourself by your own entrails, Issei said contemptuously as he activated his Rinnegan. Give her back her mother. You'll have to do it by force, he said seriously. Leonardo creates anti-magic demonic monsters. After that several strange monsters appeared. In Issei's mental space. Shukaku and Matatabi looked at each other, nodding and looking at the others who apparently agreed with their idea, although Kurama was in conflict. Out of Issei's mind space. Issei was preparing to destroy the anti-monsters with a Shinra Tensei when he felt a whirlwind of sand begin to emerge from his back and it began to lift him along with Kunu and his guards. Slowly it took the shape of a raccoon, or rather a sand tanuki with black details on it. It's time to fight, Shukaku, the one-tailed Biju on the scene. The powerful Ichibi enters action, shouted Shukaku with quite a bit of power, while the anti-magic monsters attacked him without even doing the slightest damage. Feel my power, sand coffin. The monsters were imprinted in sand. Sand burial, shouted Shukaku with great strength and emotion, while dark blood wet the sand and it fell where Cao Cao and company were before, who left the place when they saw Shukaku at his best. Kunu was very impressed, and even more so when she saw that she was in the head of such a colossal beast which came out of Issei. She was undoubtedly very excited and felt that now they could rescue her beloved mother. His thoughts were interrupted when after a strange vortex, they were sucked into a pier in front of the Niju castle, where the members of the hero faction were, and some colossal beasts created with Annihilation Maker, forcing Leonardo's sacred gear with Georg's spells, who was trying hard to create 9 enormous beasts with Leonardo's help, while Yasaka, in a kind of trance, was behind Cao Cao. However, nothing would await them for what they would see. From Issei's back a blue flame came out of it as it grew until it was the size of the Shukaku, taking the form of a two-tailed blue cat, a Nekomata. Then water swirled from Issei's back, and next to the blue cat, a shell began to form where a colossal three-tailed turtle formed. Then lava formed, and next to the huge sand raccoon, it took the form of a four-tailed red gorilla. One by one the Bijus came out of Issei, except for Kurama, who was still inside him, or that was until. Georg uses the Yasaka now. I order dog. At that moment Yasaka lets out a scream and slowly turns into his 9-tailed form, while the other Bijus fight with the creations of the Annihilation Maker. Then it happened. A lot of red chakra came out of Issei as he lightly took the form of a colossal 9-tailed fox, which was much larger than Yasaka and even the other Bijus. I will take care of the Kyuubi, no one interferes, Kurama said seriously, and then looked at Kunu. I will help your little mom, he said with a smile and jumped towards Yasaka and started to fight with her. What are those creatures? How the hell did they get out of your body? Asked Cao Cao with real doubt and to some extent concern. Issei jumped off Shukaku's head, leaving Kunu in charge as she watched the battle between the two Kyuubi. They are the powerful Bijus or tailed beasts, and they are beings as powerful as a dragon king. They are Shukaku, the spirit of the sands, the Ichibi. She is Matatabi, the spectral Nekomata of the blue fire, the Nibi. Isobu, the giant three-tailed turtle, the Sanbi. They are Goku, the king of the wise monkeys, the Yanbi. Kakuo, the dolphin mare master of steam, the Gobi. Seiken, the colossal slug, the Rakubi. Chamei, the rhinoceros beetle, also known as the Lucky Seven. Chamei is the Nanabi. Jayuki, the bull octopus, also known as the Hachibi and friend of Killer Bee. And finally Kurama, the powerful Kyuubi no Yoko, the 9-tailed fox, and as you can see is the true Kyuubi, said Issei. After that he looked at the battle of Kurama versus Yasaka, seeing how she was being held by Kurama's tails, and then her forehead was touched by 2 of Kurama's fingers, making Yasaka react, taking her out of her trance. She looked at Heracles. Well? Are you scared? Issei asked as Heracles charged at him, screaming. Don't underestimate us with it. He used a pair of missiles in his fists to attack Issei, generating a smoke screen, while Heracles smiled arrogantly, but his smile fell as soon as the smoke dissipated, showing Issei with his arms crossed with a bit of soot on his shoulder. He calmly shook his shoulder, cleaning it to look at Heracles. You've made me a little dirty, now pay for it. With it he extended his hand towards Heracles and said, Shinra Tensei. Hercules was thrown at colossal speed towards the Niju castle, destroying it instantly. Issei saw how Jean launched herself towards him with a sword in hand, so with his sacred gear, he summoned the Kubikirabacho and easily destroyed Jean's sword and managed to knock her down with the flat part of the sword to take out a chakra bar, impaling her on the ground, while he used his black path to leave her without strength and then used the human path, taking out his sacred gear and killing her on the spot. But Fury Siegfried launched himself towards Issei with Balming in hand, while his other swords were in his arms from his balance breaker, but it didn't last long before crashing to the ground after Issei moved his hand to the ground and then said Amaterasu. After that he screamed in agony and flames as he died. Issei set his gaze on Leonardo and extended his hand towards him and Georg to say, Banshmtenen, attracting the pair of Longinus users and taking them by the neck to later extract their sacred gear with his human path, killing them on the spot and using Amaterasu to burn their bodies along with Jean's. Cao Cao looked at this in shock. Only 30 seconds had passed and his companions had been killed without further ado. Anger flooded him and he launched himself at Issei with his sacred gear in hand, attacking him with everything only to pass him by without further ado. He entered Balance Breaker. Through Longinus Balance Breaker, Polar Knight Longinus Chakra Valdine. After that 7 black spheres formed behind him, floating similar to Agudadamas. Issei was not far behind, entering the 6 paths mode and 9 Magatamas appearing on his neck and 9 Gudadamas floating on his back. But sooner Atana said Cao Cao to disappear and reappear in front of Issei and attack him with his spear, piercing him in the belly, but again it only passed through him. A power very similar to the Horatian no Jutsu but it is still nothing receives this, Issei said as his arm transformed into a chakra cannon and fired a beam of energy entirely made of chakra. Cao Cao smiled as he saw the attack heading towards him, so one of his spheres appeared in front of him to say. Malaratana and the beam headed towards Issei who simply used his pre-top path absorbing the attack and then looking into Cao Cao's eyes. Tsukiyomi. The moon shone red like blood with the Sharingan reflected in it, the place was completely desolate and there was no trace of anyone except himself. Cao Cao was really worried. In this world I am God, 3 seconds are 72 hours after hearing that he saw Issei with a true Longinus in his hand and himself tied to a cross. He was tortured with his own weapon over and over again until Issei drove the tip of his own spear into his left eye. For Yusaka it was only 3 seconds when she saw her previous kidnapper collapse on the ground, now she was next to her daughter in her human form to the left of Kurama, watching Cao Cao scream in pain from his left eye, which was bleeding to see how a bleeding eyeball was in Issei's hand. Live in fear of having committed this horrible sin like the one you've done, Cao Cao, go away, saying that, Cao Cao was teleported through the fog of the lost dimension that was now in Issei. Soon the chestnut was pulled into his mental space. Issei's mind space. Hagoromo was in front of Issei who looked him straight in the eyes to tell him. There is a favor I have to ask you, Issei, create soulless bodies for my children and seal them in each one and let them live in this place, said Hagoromo calmly and with a smile. Done, but I'll tell them it was your request, see you later after that Issei disappeared from his mental space. Back on the outside. Issei looked at the Bijus and told them. Your father greets you and says to give you a physical human body and leave you here in Kyoto as you wish to look, said Issei. I want to look like Gaara, but with sand-colored hair, shouted Shukaku. I want to be like Yujito, but with blue hair and eyes like mine, said Matatabi. I know a race that resembles you, and I already have an idea of how to do it, and you're a Sobu, said Issei. It doesn't matter how much, even if it's the same as Yugura, but taller, said the Bijus. I want to be identical to Rashi, said Sun. I prefer to have a body identical to mine, but smaller, is that possible? Said Kakyo. Issei nodded and looked at Seiken who said. I want to be like Utakata, he said enthusiastically. I'm the same as Fu, said Chamei. I already feel like I'm missing Killer Bee's lousy rap, said Jayuki. Issei looked at Kurama and he just nodded, knowing what Issei had in mind, especially when he saw how Kunu hugged his paw from him. Anbutsu SMZM no Jutsu after those 9 bodies were on the ground, alive but empty of any soul. Issei continued to seal them one by one until he reached Kurama. I wish you the greatest of blessings, Kurama said Issei to seal him in what would be his new body. After finishing he looked at them directly to say. Those bodies are special since they will never be able to get out of them and they can enter their full Biju mode whenever they want. See you soon. After that Issei disappeared and the fog left them outside the real Niju castle. Issei walked towards the train station and after hiding a little he saw a certain blonde and smiled and then walked to her when she separated a little from her group. I'm glad you're okay, Asia said Issei hugging her from behind. At the same time she let go only to jump into the brown-haired boy's arms and kiss him passionately. After a nice moment between the two, Issei promised to meet her and the others at the hotel where they would stay and she agreed that night and without knowing it was the day she fathered her future children. Days later he felt a chakra in Kyoto which was Otsutsuki, so he hurriedly arrived to see a white-haired man with pearl eyes who looked him straight in his eyes. Where are the Bijua, said this one. Hey, where are your manners? Allow me to introduce myself since I know how to do it. I am Otsutsuki Issei, the new sage of the 6 paths, said the brown-haired boy with his Rinnegan shining. Otsutsuki? Are you one of the children of Hasuromo? I am Toneri Otsutsuki, descendant of Himura Otsutsuki, said Toneri more relaxed. Well, as for them, I sealed them in new bodies permanently separated from the Juubi's shell, they will never be able to join them again, Issei said with a relaxed smile. I have a proposal for you, Toneri, Issei said, getting his attention. I'm listening, the said interested person. I will give you a new Byakugan which, thanks to your blood, will evolve into the Tensugan in the future, but in exchange, help me rebuild the ninja world, said the brown-haired boy, using the creation of all things jutsu to create a pair of totally pure Hyuga Byakugan. Humans will never learn and will enter into multiple wars, Toneri said, hardening his gaze. They can change and we will do it together, although after all they united under the same flag to defeat that imbecile Madara Uchiha, said the brown-haired boy extending his hand with the Byakugan. Fine, but if they start a war they will be destroyed, said Toneri. Done, answered the brown-haired boy. After that, the brown-haired boy transplanted the Byakugan to him and agreed to meet in the underworld in 2 months. After that he went to Helheim to talk to Hela since he spoke to her every morning through magic communication circles. It was time to clear things up, although he never imagined ending up falling in love with the Norse goddess of death. Those 2 months he visited his girls at night and well, good things happened for him and them. After the established time had passed, they both met again. Tsukiyomi Infinite Final Part. You're early, I expected you to arrive a little later as we agreed, Issei said seriously looking at Toneri. I had to get here early after all. We will rebuild the earth in my world together using our powers, said the white hair. I know Toneri, I know that very well, although I didn't expect that we would see each other in this desert in the underworld, considering that the ancient demons are still looking for my head, he said with a half smile. We are in unexplored territory so we have no problem with them, although I am still surprised that you proposed to recreate the ninja world, despite the fact that they were constantly at war, said Toneri. And as I told you, they joined together to stop the final madness of one man. That idiot tried to dominate the dragon god was his last mistake, said Issei. I agree with you on that, and that's why I decided to cooperate. Besides, you gave me these eyes, he said as his blue eyes with a strange white flower pattern appeared. I have the Rinnegan, but I still haven't got the Tensegan, and I needed someone who had it to rebuild the earth, so I turned to the other survivor of the ninja world. He knew his decision because he wanted to return what was lost due to the ambition of a lunatic, said Toneri. Suddenly Issei was on guard. A very bad feeling came over him when he felt a chakra several meters away from them. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets when he saw a vortex so familiar to him. He used that vortex with his Manjikyu Sharingan, so there was only one response, and it was not pleasant. Obito, said Issei as his Manjikyu Sharingan came to life, but then both he and Toneri looked in disbelief, as he was not the only one to come out of there, and the one they believed more than dead was coming out next to Obito from the vortex. Anger flooded Issei quickly and he angrily shouted. Madara, as soon as he said that, the black-haired man with his Rinnegan looked at the brown-haired man carefully as he died with half of his body covered by black Zetsu. So here is the Jinchuriki of the 9 Bijas, said Black Zetsu. He's just a snot, it will be easy to finish him off. Kuchius. Jed Maz, Madara said seriously. Issei is incredulous, but then he thought about it carefully and the memories of Hagoromo came to him suddenly, seeing what the old man saw. Madara survived the first attack by using the Bijas as a shield from the Great Red's attack, and since they were chakra they only died temporarily, while Black Zetsu had used Obito's Kamui to take out the 3 of them and the Jed Mazm. Issei became even more enraged and activated his Rinnegan in all its splendor, but then he felt how the Jed Mazm began to slowly take the form of the Juubi. He did not understand anything until Toneri spoke. They took a bit of the 9 beasts chakra before the catastrophe happened, those 2 bastards, Toneri said in anger. The plan of the Eye of the Moon will be carried out whether here or anywhere else, said Madara, but then he saw how fog covered them. Nothing had seemed to change for him. A simple jutsu won't be of much use to you, Brad, said the Uchiha. Dimension lost, a sacred gear so powerful in the right hands and mine are now, annihilation maker, balance breaker, after saying that a colossal beast in the form of a 6-armed and 2-horned troll originates from Issei's shadow. The colossal beast was 100 meters tall. Issei looked at the huge beast and then pointed at the Juubi, which was already in its final form, despite the low chakra of the 9 beasts. Madara was shocked, but as soon as the beast launched itself towards the Juubi, he ordered the Juubi to finish it off, and a powerful battle between beasts took place on the spot, while Toneri and Issei prepared for the devastating battle that was coming upon them, not knowing that this would only get worse later, much worse. Madara launched himself at Issei, who began to repel them with Taijutsu, one that Madara instantly recognized, smiling as he remembered who he considered the strongest in Taijutsu. So he taught you his style of Taijutsu, heh? Let's see if you're up to par or at least close to my expectations, Madara shouted excitedly as he tried to kick Issei, but then simply passed through him. Kamui? Madara asked as he dodged Issei's front kick. Issei did not answer. I would not design to answer this guy who caused the destruction of an entire world because of his ambition. Toneri for his part attacked Obito with Taijutsu, not being able to do anything to him because Obito used his Kamui, but the same was true for Obito, who every time he attacked he was perfectly evaded. After that Toneri sent him away with force using his gravitational powers. Obito was upset by this. Who did they think they were to prevent him from seeing Rin again? For his part, Toneri was really upset by this. His plans to restore the shinobi world were being ruined by a couple of crazy idiots who only made him angry. Madara was impressed by the brown-haired boy's ability as he fought on par with him, but everyone's attention was interrupted when the giant beast was finally defeated by the Juubi, who used a Bijuadama at full power. The brown-haired boy just shrugged his shoulders and watched as Madara absorbed the Juubi again, turning the white-haired boy into a pale-skinned man with a Rin Sharingan on his forehead. Issei was about to hit him when his head hurt more than usual, and he was hit by a limbo from Madara, who by the way looked at him mockingly. Issei calmed down and decided it was time to use his 6-path Sage mode, but at that moment his Rinnegan showed 6 tomes in his first 2 waves. Issei managed to see Madara's limbo and decided to create his own. He counterattacked Madara, who still had a certain advantage over Issei, or that was until Issei said, "I'll show you what Sage mode and the Flames of Youth can do together," he said, and then shot out at greater speed towards Madara. "Kamen Kai," said the brunette as he opened his eyes in surprise, as he recognized the technique very well, but he didn't expect the impact of the blow to be greater than the one he had that time. So he deduced that if he allowed it to go further it would really kill him. "You're strong, kid, but not enough," he said as he closely incinerated Issei with his Amaterasu and his Jutsu Kaiten. Great fire annihilation. However, further up ahead was the brat now intact. "The Izanagi won't be of much use to you against me," said Madara, but he noticed something else and shouted, really shocked, "How is it possible that you still see in that eye of the Izanagi?" He ended up being interrupted by an incredibly strong blow. "Pikmin Kai, Seimin Kai," after that a series of kicks and punches were given, leaving Madara damaged. "Izanami or Izanagi will not have that side effect on me, Madara, you better prepare yourself." For his part, Toneri had Obito in a bind since he discovered the weakness of Kamui. He doesn't have this problem with Kamui as serious as you do, but well, it's not like you can defeat him, no one can, Toneri said seriously. "Let's see if it's true," he said, disappearing in a vortex, but his voice was not at all that of death. Issei for his part had already awakened 5 of the 8 gates and was already far surpassing Madara. Advantages of the Sage mode of the 6 paths is that the body is much more resistant and stronger, so it had no impact on him yet, and even if it had, he could use Izanagi unlimitedly on both him and Toneri. However, nothing prepared him for what he saw. Obito had attacked Madara from behind, piercing his belly. Madara vomited blood to look behind him and see Obito. "What does this mean, Black Zetsu?" he asked incredulously. "I'm just following my mother's will, don't take it the wrong way, you're no longer useful to me," said Black Zetsu, spreading it on Madara's body so that it would begin to swell more and more until it became a huge ball of dough and then began to shrink, revealing a very beautiful woman. "Kagaya Otsutsuki," Issei said in shock. He knew that only he and Toneri could stop her together since he didn't trust Obituary even a little bit. "Hagoromo, Himura," she said, seeing Issei and Toneri in front of her, and without further ado the Shinju tree rose behind her and a huge glow appeared in the place, but then she realized something. "Where are we? There's no one else here," he said authoritatively. "Infinite Tsukiyomi will never work in my lost Kagaya dimension, so don't even try to use it," Issei said seriously, but again the headache came back to him with force. "You've heard that when things are bad they can get worse." Well, that's exactly what happened at this very moment for Issei. As the pain increased considerably, a distortion occurred in the place, and it was something that scared Kagaya herself. Millennia of escape. Millennia of hiding from them. And not at all. "Oh, so this is where you were hiding," Kagaya said with great arrogance, the subject who came out accompanied by another one. "Mama Shiki," she said in fear as he smiled at her. Things really got complicated for both Issei and Toneri as well as Kagaya. Things were pretty screwed up at this point. Mama Shiki and Kinshiki looked at the 4 present, although the black-haired man didn't matter to them since he didn't represent the slightest problem. The brown-haired man with the Rinnegan and the white hair of the Tensegan were undoubtedly the greatest threat, but they couldn't leave Kagaya Otsutsuki aside. "Toneri, you go get that robust guy, I'll take care of Kagaya and that smaller guy." At this point Obituary is anything but a threat, said the brown-haired man as he opened 7 of the 8 internal doors. "Done, it won't take long, he's not that powerful, and I can see that," Toneri said, entering Tensegan chakra mode. Kagaya for her part of her trembled slightly in her place of her, but Zetsu's voice of her calmed her a little. It is true that she was not alone, she had him, her only ally. Issei for his part knew that the Mama Shiki guy was underestimating him, and Kagaya, being honest with himself, Kagaya was a threat far greater than that Otsutsuki and his companion. After a few seconds Toneri attacked Kinshiki with a Gudadama and threw him away from the place, while Mama Shiki launched himself against Issei and Kagaya launched her bones against the two, but they dodged it. Sooner than later Mama Shiki realized his mistake when fighting Issei head-on because he kicked him and damaged him considerably, but at that same moment he stole some chakra from the brown-haired boy. Kagaya threw her hair as if needles were going towards Mama Shiki, while Issei attacked her from the front and she managed to hurt him with her bones, destroying him on the spot, only to receive a kick with great force in the back by the same brown-haired man that she had just eliminated. Without a doubt this battle would not be easy. Kinshiki was certainly no match for Toneri as he had already put him in several problems in a few minutes. If I knew that the battle had been going on for hours, certainly when the fights are intense, they feel like a very short time when in reality it is a long time. For his part, Obito did not know what to do because he was caught in the crossfire and could easily die at any moment. He had really underestimated the brown-haired and white-haired man since they could have easily eliminated him and Madara, even with the Jubi. It would be suicidal, but he knew that if he wanted to see her in again, he would have to help the white-haired man, so he used his Kamui and attacked Kinshiki, causing a wound on his back distracting him. Toneri did not waste this, and with one of his Gudodamas managed to severely injure Kinshiki. The guy evaded Issei's attacks as best she could, while attacking Momoshiki with clear intentions of killing him, until Issei saw how Kinshiki was severely injured. Now Toneri could help him kill Momoshiki and Kagaya once and for all. It would end what Hagoromo and Hamura didn't do. However, Momoshiki extended his hand, and Kinshiki turned into a small fleshy mass and devoured him in one bite. His appearance changed a lot. He looked at Issei and Kagaya with superiority and launched himself against Issei, who was about to evade when he felt the worst pain he had ever felt in his life. It was so much that he lost his transformation into Sage of the Six Paths mode. The internal doors and even his Rinnegan leaving him completely vulnerable to Momoshiki's attack, hitting him with devastating force, launching the incredibly best, and leaving him very injured. Son Kagaya shouted in shock and then went into a rage, attacking Momoshiki with everything, managing to push him back. Toneri was worried about Issei's state of him because he knew that he couldn't fight those two alone, not even with the help of Obituary, who seemed to be on their side for now. Zetsu didn't understand it, but his mother, just at the moment when Issei received the blow, screamed with genuine fear and then turned to fury. Issei's mind space. He was in front of the 9 Baijas who were in their new forms and all extended their fist to the brown-haired boy with a smile. They ignored the pair of eyes that were watching what was about to happen. Out of Issei's metal space. The pain stopped as he felt himself getting stronger and stronger, so he wanted to enter the Six Paths Sage mode, but it didn't happen. He closed his eyes and when he opened them the Tensogen was at its maximum expression in his eyes. Now finally his power was at the level it needed to be at for this moment. I entered Tensogen chakra mode while trying to enter Six Paths Sage mode and use the chakra that the Baijas had given him then. Kagaya opened her eyes in disbelief. Momoshiki didn't want to believe it. Toneri started laughing loudly as he watched Issei. That felt like a simple grain of sand in the emptiness of the cosmos. Issei's energy exploded with great force as he finally got used to the new sensation his body felt. He immediately hit Momoshiki hard in the belly, throwing him far away. This power is incredible, but by itself, it is not enough yet, so without further ado Issei forced his Rinnegan to his right eye and finally concentrated his power in the. But Momoshiki in his desperation, launched himself towards Issei with all his power and an attack similar to the Rasengan but red and tried to hit Issei with it. Rasen Shuriken. And he collided his technique with Momoshiki's, causing a huge dome of power, launching them both with force, although Momoshiki absorbed the impact with his Rinnegan in his hand. Issei seeing this came up with an idea and threw several three-pointed kunai while wrapping himself in the Raten no Yoroi and suddenly disappeared to appear in front of Momoshiki, but he tried to repel him with a kick, but he disappeared again and hit him with a kick to the back of the neck. Issei threw a kunai towards Momoshiki and he took it in one of his hands while Issei charged a Chidori attacking head-on. Momoshiki tried to use the kunai to attack Issei, but he used the Hiraishin Shiki seal to change the Chidori for the kunai, injuring the Rinnegan on Momoshiki's left hand and damaging it by using lightning chakra. Kagaya launched more of her bones at Momoshiki and Issei, but they were deflected by Toneri using her Tensogen. Toneri launched several attacks with his Gudodamas, while Kagaya dodged them with ease. Momoshiki was on the ground already quite injured, but nothing could stop him from getting up once again. He prepared to attack Issei, but a second before he did anything he was attacked from behind by Obito once again. "You damn mortal, how dare you attack a god," he shouted angrily, hitting Obito hard, piercing his heart and throwing him far away. Kakashi, sensei we'll meet soon, thought Obito closing his eyes. Issei saw this indifferently, but inside he felt sorry for the poor broken man who had just died in front of him. He bravely died facing being that far surpassed him and managed to hurt him directly. He extended his hand towards Momoshiki and shouted Chibukutensei. After that Momoshiki was surrounded by colossal amounts of rock until finally they were as large as the moon itself. Well, Kagaya looked at this in fear, remembering that this was how she was sealed, but her thoughts died when she saw Issei carry in his hand a blue sphere that grew larger and larger, Choudama Rasengan, and he threw it with great force towards the artificial moon, causing an explosion of colossal magnitudes, so much so that Issei used his Kamui and Toneri to prevent it from dying, while Kagaya used all her own power to avoid dying in the explosion. When the dust cleared, the wasteland was burning in flames and molten rock, while nothing remained of the moon or Momoshiki, or that was until the chakra began to spin with great speed in Issei, to the point that it seemed not to stop, and then it happened. The Raynare Rinnegan awakened to its fullest expression. Kagaya was no longer in a position to fight against Issei or Toneri. Her previous battle left her tired and even more so her effort to avoid dying in the explosion of the artificial moon. She launched herself at Issei, and suddenly an idea came to her to distract her. Page Bushin no Jutsu several Issei appeared, and Kagaya focused more on her Byakugan Warichiaku Rimyu no Jutsu she said, and then all the Issei they showed something hexy to Kagaya. After that Issei appeared behind her and hit her with a full power Shinra Tensei, throwing her away from her, and then approached her and said. A few last words hey. Issei was petrified as he saw how a fissure suddenly opened in the sky, and a large dragon that he immediately recognized appeared, which shocked him was its unexpected arrival. Of course, such a large amount of power gathered together should have caught their attention, but even more so hearing what Kagaya said. Oregon Shin no, Kagaya said in shock, the dragon god she fell to her knees, the being most feared by the Otsutsuki, the dragon god king of kings in this place we are doomed, Kagaya said sweating from nerves. Suddenly a red trail flew and hit next to Issei, who was surprised to see who came down from the dragon god. Nai-san. Issei said in disbelief. Issei-ku greeted jovially. It's not that I'm not glad you came, but what the hell? Did you come on the back of the big red one? Issei said. Well, he helped me with a problem I had, and he was interested in your fight here, from what I see it's not ending well yet, I'm going to. It didn't end because Issei threw him away with a Shinra Tensei it's his fight, he should N''T get involved. Or at least that's what the brown-haired boy thought. That hurt, you just had to say it damn it, Ku said dusting off his clothes without a single scratch or wound. Kagaya was very scared, would she be sealed again? His answer came from the lesser chestnut tree. Well Kagaya, time to die. Any last words? Issei said seriously as Toneri left Issei's Kamui dimension. I hate Hasuromo, Hamura Kagaya said. I'm Issei no Hasuromo, and also he's not Hamura he's Toneri now Issei said as he advanced towards her. Snap. A snap was heard in the distance, and suddenly Issei was suddenly surrounded by a purple aura that seemed to make him stronger without knowing why. Kagaya launched herself one last time towards Issei. Issei hit her and the aura at that moment concentrated in his fist hitting Kagaya squarely, throwing her into the sky, so that Issei then concentrated all his magic and chakra, as well as his senjutsu in the cannon that was formed by his Pathasura in his arm, launching a powerful and masterful beam of energy which completely consumed Kagaya. It's over Issei said, and Toneri agreed. Issei, you're going to be a dad, Ku said without further ado, causing Issei to open his eyes in disbelief. End of the infinite Tsukiyomi. Everyone was shocked to see the brown-haired boy's life in front of them, although of course there is always an idiot who ruins the atmosphere, in this case a blue-eyed blonde. That was amazing Dadabeo, first Pam then Poom, and that Kagaya Tokuam exclaimed the young blonde excitedly and making exaggerated hand movements that although no one said it, helped lighten the atmosphere. Office hugged Issei by the waist and said. It hurts here, why does it hurt? What is this pain? She said touching her chest while tears ran down her cheeks. It's called sadness and it's a feeling of sadness, here eat this lollipop, said the brown-haired boy while giving him the sweetness and caressing his head while feeling the hugs from his partners. Issei-san said the blonde ex-nun as she hugged him tightly and cried. While Sakura watched that until a vein grew on her forehead. How can you have more than one partner? You're a pervert Sakura said, annoyed only to feel Issei's gaze from her towards her. No, but in the supernatural world it is not frowned upon he said simply while his partners nodded along with several of those who came with Issei. Hey, I have a question, he said to Kumo Ninja, if your mother didn't really hate you and you loved her, why don't you revive her? I bet you really want to, he said, making Issei open his eyes a little. Hey, wasn't that a bit drastic what you did with your clan? One of the Suna said. They deserved it and more shouted one of the Iwa, supported by several from other villages. What he did was the right thing, they were a danger in the future, Itachi said remembering Danzo. Issei just stood there watching as many talked about what they had seen, a drop of sweat ran down his neck as he saw several ninjas looking at him as a pervert and others in a dreamy way, which caused Asia, Akeno, Ravel, Burant, Kaneko and Arena to possessively hug Issei. Then Zenobia joined them, but she did it more than anything to go with the flow. Even with what I've seen, none of that matters to me, said Sasuke Uchiha as his Manjikyu Sharingan came to life, and Sakura lowered her head. I see Issei said seriously to stretch his arms towards Sakura and the Banshmtenin, saying that they shot towards him to stop them in the air with his diva path. He approached Sasuke removed a hair from him, and then his hand glowed and crashed it into Sakura's belly, which bent a little from the blow that was not very strong, let's say, Banbutsu SMZM no Jutsu said Issei, so that Sakura would be lowered, and then vomit congratulations you are now father, said Issei with an arrogant smile looking at Sasuke, who looked at him shocked but remained static. Without noticing that Issei put a Fuin seal on him that seal on your chest prohibits you from moving away from your son or Sakura until you accept that you like him. Do not deny it, after all, in a way it was you, said Issei, smiling to turn to see Hinata and Naruto, who looked at him incredulously. Ha, that reminds me, Hinata Hyuga loves Naruto Uzumaki, she shouted as the pearl-eyed girl blushed, as did the blonde. After that, Issei used the creation of all things jutsu and created a large screen where Hinata's memories of Naruto and her creation in the Battle of Pain were played. Issei ran to where the others were and used Kamui, but before that he looked at Toneri and Karen. I'll leave you in charge of this world, and good luck, Tiger. He winked at him to leave, and the white-haired man didn't understand what he meant until he saw that he was holding Karen's hand. The XD world. As soon as they arrived, Rias looked directly at Issei and extended her hand to her. Issei handed her Karen Uzumaki's pawn piece, since she saw at the moment Issei used his Izanagi. Take your pawn, sister-in-law. Now that I think about it, this is the second time you lose a piece, Issei said thoughtfully, until one had an idea. I'll give you a good piece in exchange. Banbutsu SMZM no Jutsu. I have created a pair of those white beings, Kuchias. Edo Tensei. The two beings were wrapped to bring to life Hashirama Senju and Tabarama Senju. They looked at Issei and Tensei. After that the two came back to life, only to look into Issei's eyes. Kotomatsukami. After that the eyes of the two turned white. Now they are your servant, senpai, said the brown-haired man, while this pair of Hokages knelt before Rias. It wasn't necessary, Issei, she said, but I won't waste this opportunity. With it she used a mutated pawn on Hashirama and a normal one on Tabarama. While Issei was watching that, an idea came to his mind, and he used his creation of all things jutsu and created a set of engagement rings and a ring with several engravings. With that he made 6 Kage Bushin, and each one took a ring and knelt down. Beiju Argento, Himejima Ikeno, Ravel Phoenix, Zenobia Quarta, Shidu Arena, Taujo Kaneko, Burant and Hella, would you marry me? Said the brown-haired boy, leaving everyone excited, and they did not hesitate to run into his arms. I do, they shouted at the same time while the others applauded happily. And your brother has already surpassed you in another thing, partner, said Drake, but Ku did not answer him and walked to Issei, tilting his head to say. I know this may sound selfish, but please revive our mother. Wizards and vampires. Issei was in his bed with his fiancées in it. It must be said that the brown-haired boy was sleeping peacefully when the door of his room was knocked a few times. Otsutsuki-sama, breakfast will be ready in 20 minutes, said to a maid from the Phoenix family who walked away, while Issei opened his eyes and activated his Manjikyu Sharingan, using the Kamui to get out of the arms of all his fiancées. He walked to his closet and got dressed. The girls, not feeling their beloved, got up and dressed in the Kuo Academy uniform. After going down to the dining room, Issei observed how a silver-haired maid was making the table for everyone to have breakfast. Good morning, Issei-sama, Graphia said calmly and respectfully. Hello, Graphia, searches Aramito-sama is up, he said with a twitch of his eyebrow. The maid raised her eyebrow slightly to respond. He's in his office, Issei-sama, she said curiously, and then asked something. Why does it say leaning-sama? She said doubtfully. Well, it's my house and they live in it without consulting me, and I cover all the expenses. How can he not be a freeloader if he doesn't help out at all? He said, sitting down in the place of the man of the house. Good point, but I am helping as much as possible, Issei-sama, she replied with slight annoyance. You said it, you did it, he didn't take my office as his own, just like Azazel and Michael, he said, taking out his cell phone, and seeing the girls arrive with his brother and the volley team. The Citri entourage also came along with the Mao Leviathan, whom he greeted with great enthusiasm. Right after the others came together with a certain brunette, and it must be said that she looked at Issei with a low and sad look. The chestnut remembered what happened days before. Flashback. I know this may sound selfish, but please revive our mother, Ku said in a pleading manner, while he kept bowing towards the younger brown-haired boy. Fine, but it will be your responsibility, you better take care of her, he said with his Rinnegan shining dangerously. Banbutsu SMZM no Jutsu, he said, and a white body without a soul was created, Edo Tensei. After that it was surrounded by papers taking the form of a certain brunette, Rin Tensei, he said, and after that she came back to life. Ku, from now on she is your problem, said the brunette. Retreating to his room. End of flashback. The maids arrived to bring food for everyone, while a red-haired maid stood behind Issei. Maya, what's on my itinerary today? The brown-haired boy asked his personal maid. Spend the day lazing around until noon, go to the occult club for the meeting with the vampires on the Carmilla side, and in the afternoon continue lazing around, she said as she opened the notebook. Issei just looked at her and then looked at his served breakfast and said, perfect, I'll catch up on lazing around, I haven't done it for a long time, he said, making a drop of sweat appear on the back of the neck of those present. Then Issei looked at everyone at the table, hardening his gaze. Mao Lucifer. Seraph Michael and former Governor Azazel will parent from now on for staying without consulting me, not you father-in-law, he said hastily as he saw Barakiel take out his wallet, but he hardened his gaze upon hearing the word father-in-law, only to receive a kiss on the cheek from Shuri. Azazel was about to complain when Issei spoke, that also includes you Citri clan and Mau Leviathan. Team Volley and you Catherine Lucifer, he said looking at them seriously. I'm running out of money for keeping this house, he said, lowering his head with a black cloud and rain over him. Oh, don't worry brother-in-law, my parents have already taken care of the groceries and maintenance of the house, so you don't have to worry so much, said Razor Phoenix entering with Ruvel, who only greeted him jovially giving an eye as a greeting. Hey, if that's the case, Issei, you're a Phoenix retainer, Ku said, pointing at him. Besides, I'll put in my share of the money that's supposed to come to you from the Hyoudou inheritance. I'm sorry Ku, but you know I can't accept that. I'm Otsutsuki Issei no Hyoudou Issei, he said hardening his gaze, only to be taken by the hand by Asia and Ravel. Well, money doesn't hurt me, he said while smiling at Asia and Ravel, while a certain brunette lowered her head sadly. After breakfast the boys went to the Kuo Academy, while Issei watched TV lying on an armchair eating chips. You're not supposed to go to school, I hear a certain brunette talking to him. I don't need it, I have thousands of years of knowledge in my mind after stealing it from the idiots of the Cows Brigade. I have the knowledge of thousands of years of another world, and besides, I am almost an all-powerful being, said the brown-haired man downplaying it. You should go anyway, I didn't raise you to be lazy, but there's something to do, said Mickey Hyoudou, looking at him carefully. You never did it in the first place, he said bored and changing the assistant to turn on his Xbox 360 and put on his zombie game. Besides I'm of legal age and I can do whatever I want, he said while playing a very popular zombie game in the West. I understand like you're old if you're barely 16 and you're going on 17, said Mickey Hyoudou annoyed in scolding mode. Izanagi, he said, and aged 5 years tell it to my power. He continued playing and was killed in the game. Izanagi, he said, and went back to the game saving himself this time. Damn, this power is so practical, he said with a victory smile. Mickey Hyoudou watched her second son play so carefree and skipping classes, as if he didn't care until Surziches arrived. She went to the kitchen for something to eat as a snack. Didn't you go to the academy? He asked, taking another of the controllers and connecting it to play. There's no need to go in the first place, after all I'm still a traitor of the demons. Don't you have responsibilities as the leader of the demons to attend to? Issei asked nonchalantly despite what he had said. Yes, but I must attend to something of greater importance, said the Mau seriously as they killed the muscular enemy they were facing. And that would be it? The brown-haired boy asked. You young Issei, I'm worried about you, he said looking at the brown-haired boy, only to hear him pause the game and stare at him. I don't understand, he said seriously. I know that all this is difficult for you and that you need a figure. I didn't finish saying when he spoke. That's what Kurama is for. Even if he is with Yusaka, he was more what you try to be than anyone else. Chaume was also a you-know-what figure, so I don't need that in case you were wondering, he said dryly. I understand, but you still know that we are here to support you. Otsutsuki Issei, said the red-haired Mau to look at the TV and wait for the brown-haired man to pause the game. He did what the Mau expected and then played along. If I need help on being a good father I will consult you. I want to be the best for my children, he said with a smile. The Mau smiled and said, Grafia is willing to help you with that too, she loves babies, even though she never says it. But then they heard a crash and looked back to see Mickey Hyoudou staring at them in disbelief as she dropped a plate of snacks. Kids? She said in shock. Yeah, I'm going to be a father, and so is Ku, he said, seeing how the Mau smiled very happily at that. You're weird, Surziches, he said, moving away from him a little. Come on, don't be bad Issei-kun, I'll be an uncle, he said excitedly. Neither Riser nor Ruvel got that excited, you know. The brown-haired boy said, ignoring his mother's smile, who was already knitting a baby suit. You've won the affection of others, but don't think I'll let you be their grandmother so easily. Win my affection and forgiveness first, he said seriously, only to be ignored as she was singing a lullaby. I had a similar experience with my mother when she found out about Milika's and recently about Rias and Ku, said the Mau, with a drop of sweat on the back of his neck. Lady Phoenix was something like her reaction. Troublesome women, he said to continue the game, only to see that they had already died. Izanagi. In the hidden club room everyone was waiting for a certain brown-haired boy who was quick to arrive in a vortex of his kamui. Damn, this ability is bucking cool. Should I put on a mask like a death? The brown-haired boy said, reflecting on that. I don't think so, Issei, Ku said, pointing to a seat, and the younger brown-haired boy sat down calmly. Ah, she already found out that she's going to be a grandmother, he said without further ado, causing Ku to choke on his tea, while a drop of sweat appeared on the back of Issei's neck. You're exaggerating, he said with a bored face. After that the climate in the room dropped in temperature, the vampires had arrived, and as soon as that happened, Kiba went to greet them, since a vampire could not enter a place without being previously invited, a pathetic weakness if you ask Issei. After a few moments Kiba arrived with the guests. They were a pair of adults dressed in Victorian-era clothing, and a younger girl with ruby red eyes and pale skin like a corpse. She looked like a very beautiful and elegant doll. She wore a wine-red gothic loli dress that highlighted her blonde hair. As you are representatives of the three biblical factions, it is an honor to be in the presence of two heiresses of demonic clans and sisters of two Mau, just as I am honored by the presence of the former governor of the fallen angels Azazel. My name is Elmenhold Karnstein, you can call me Elman for short, she said, sitting in front of Rias to look at her same. Karnstein, if I am not mistaken, is part of the Carmilla vampire faction. They are a high-ranking noble family, and I must say that it has been a long time since I have been in the presence of a pure-blood vampire, he said, Azazel looking at her. I'm sorry to be so direct, but what does a vampire from the Carmilla faction want with the biblical factions? You ask seriously. We want to borrow only from Gaspar. Vladi said this seriously. Issei looked at this board, so he just dedicated himself to using his Sharingan on one of the girl's companions, to really know what they had in mind. Of course he did it discreetly. He opened his eyes slightly, knowing what was really going on there. So the Teeps and the Carmilla are at war. Hey, I'd be interested in giving the Teeps a visit, said the brown-haired boy, activating his magic Q. Elmenhold Karnstein was very impressed and shocked when she heard what the younger chestnut said. But Ice, you just came back, said Asia, distressed. I'll be back for dinner, there's something I need to confirm, he said as he walked into her kamui. That ability is really cool and kind of scary, said one of the vampire's companions. Certainly, Azazel said with suspicion towards Issei. Stretch finish. Issei came out of his kamui dimension right in the garden of the Teep's castle. In front of him a stunned vampire looked at him while the brown-haired boy used his Sharingan on her, putting her in a Jinjutsu to get information out of her, but soon he took her out of it. Larry Teeps, you're Gaspar Vladi's friend. Am I wrong? The brown-haired boy said, and the girl looked at him, nodding. Do you know Gasp-kun? She asked timidly without noticing that they were surrounded by a fog. That's right, he's my little cowhide and almost a younger brother, said the brown-haired boy smiling. Would you like to go see him? I can't, I really would like to, but I am the queen of the sod, she said resignedly. Are you because you want to be or because you are forced to be? The brown-haired boy directly said. Both, said the blonde, embarrassed. If we go for a while, no one will notice, said the brown-haired boy, smiling. Well, let's go, I want to see Gasp-kun, said the blonde somewhat shyly. Okay, let's go, he said seriously but smiling to disappear in a kamui vortex, but a strange portal opened in front of him which made him stop. You are, he said in disbelief at what he saw. Unexpected, said the brown-haired boy in front of him accompanied by several others until Issei pointed at one of them, opening his eyes in disbelief. And you are such a SNS and arc, what the hell, you're not even real, how is it possible that you're here, said Issei impressed. Well boy, you'll see. Of course. Who was in front of the corpse of a green dragon which apparently was Grendel or what was left of it. The brown-haired boy looked at the magician who, with some fear, fled after seeing that the attack on the Kuo Academy failed. It seemed as if they knew they would come there. The vortex appeared next to Ku where the Diva Path Guru Hyoudou of his brother came out and he looked at him. What the hell happened here, said the road. Some wizards attacked the academy just as you said, the Cows Brigade planned and killed Grendel. Where are you? The brown-haired boy asked. Realizing that there is a multiverse and that beings we thought were fiction are real, it's all so strange, he said without further ado. Well, Ku looked at him strangely. Let's just say that I found myself from another dimension where I am the Sekiryu, and well, I'll tell you later, said the Diva Path disappearing in a kamui. What the buck? Issei, Ku said, completely confused, while the magician who had summoned Grendel escaped. He escaped. Grafia is not going to like what I'm going to have to say to her. I'll tell her after dinner. Will Rias want to make me a cake? The brunette wondered before leaving the place in a magic circle to the occult club room. Upon arriving, Rias hugged him happily, while the rest looked at him expectantly, except for Gaspar, who was not there. Issei sent one of his paths and well, he said a lot of nonsense. On the other hand, Rias caught her attention. Grafia's brother is alive, Euclid Lucifuge is alive, and is part of the Cows Brigade, he said seriously. Well, Rias opened her eyes in shock. We will tell him after dinner. I don't want the shock to affect him so much, he said with slight concern. Suddenly Issei arrived at the place with his kamui, along with a blonde girl and a brown-haired boy identical to him, but in a military uniform, who looked at the place in surprise. Unexpected, there are faces I don't know in my world, said the brown-haired soldier without further ado. Issei-kun, who is he? Why is he identical to you? Irina asked doubtfully before noticing the girl next to the brown-haired man with the Sharingan. And who is she? She said somewhat jealously, causing a smile on the boy's face. Well, it's a bit complicated to explain, but to be exact, he's a me from a very distant alternate reality, said the Otsutsuki, while the brown-haired boy showed off his boosted gear and greeted. Major Hyoudou Issei of the Japan Self-Defense Forces, part of the squad specialized in the supernatural and active member of the Avengers of Justice, it is a pleasure to meet you, he said, bowing while the others observed him. It's certainly strange to be in front of another Sekiryuite. I speak out loud, Drake through Ku's boosted gear. In a way it is also somewhat uncomfortable if I'm honest, the other Drake commented from the military Issei's boosted gear. Well, what I came for, I'm going on a trip for a long time now that I found out that there are several realities. I'll have to travel to avoid possible threats. I am really sorry, I know I just came back, but I feel like only I can do this, said the brown-haired boy, sad and truly sorry. We understand, Issei-san, at least come see us once a month, could you? Asia said with sadness in her voice. Once a week, the brown-haired boy answered as he walked up to her and gave her a kiss on the lips, then proceeded to give another to Ravel, followed by Akeno, Irina, Zenobia, Kaneko, Burant, and finally Hela, who had arrived after the meeting with the vampires from the Carmilla side. This is awkward, said the soldier as Valeri nodded at his side, only for the door to be opened by a young damper who stood frozen upon seeing Valeri. Valeri-chan, he said in shock before running and hugging her lovingly. Well, I think I can leave things in your hands, Ku, or so I hope, Issei laughed when he saw the outrageous face his brother had. Are you ready to go, Otsutsuki Issei? I asked the one in military uniform. Completely. Hey, I have a question. He asked a question that caught the other's attention. I'm listening, he replied calmly. Are there parallel versions of the same universe? I asked as seriously. Yes, an infinity, said this one. I want to see them, Issei mentioned. So let's go, said the brown-haired soldier with a smile. And without further ado, they both left in a Kamui. Hey, he told me that he would take me back to Teep's castle once he visits, gasped Kun, Valeri said uneasily. Yes, I think it's not going to be possible anymore, said Ku with a nervous smile. Months later. Ku was fighting to the death against nothing more and nothing less than a strange creature. His body was made up of several different beasts, a chimera in a few words. He had 7 heads, a lion, a fox, a bear, a dragon, a boar, a goat and a king cobra, each representing the worst sins. He had 4 robust arms similar to those of a gorilla, as well as his hunched body. Its 2 legs of him were those of a goat. Despite not having wings, it flew and its destructive power was colossal. Several Bijuu dames hit the beast as it fell due to an axe kick from Ku, who injured it. However, Ku turned around to see his brother coming out of a Kamui vortex. Damn it, Issei, I've never been happier to see you arrive, Ku said, observing the appearance of his brother, who was wearing the clothes of an Otsutsuki. Okay, let's finish this, Issei said, pointing his hand towards the beast of the end. The bone came out of his hand and finally stuck into the trihexa as it began to crumble and regenerate continuously. I need some help with this, bro, give me some drag fire, Issei said as a Susanoo spear formed in front of him, and it was on Amaterasu flames. Ku shouted before the red and characteristic fire of Drake surrounded the spear, combining both fires. Issei without further ado threw that huge spear at the trihexa, burn you and disappear forever, damn beast, Issei shouted, so that finally the spear would hit the trihexa. Hey Issei, I know you haven't come to this world for a couple of months. What stopped you so long? Ku asked. An army of Otsutsuki, all as powerful or more than Kagaya, a big red from another dimension, a demented me from yet another, a very angry you after my alternate self murdered the entire clan and half of Kuo City, and finally saved a ninja world. I was very busy, he said boredly. Well, let me tell you that Asia is going to kill you when she sees you. Since she entered the 3rd trimester of pregnancy, she is very aggressive. This is the 4th time she has broken Azazel's arm this week, said Ku, rubbing the back of his neck with a drop of sweat on his forehead. Okay, let's go, bro, I'm home, he said with a smile. Welcome home, brother. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.